Hello, my knowledge-thirsty beauties, and welcome to another exciting episode of the DP2dabrain podcast. With me, we have another very special guest, Mr. Jared Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox, how are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, Dugan. Thank you for having me on. I'm actually really excited to get to our conversation today. I actually want to share my screen with you if you wouldn't mind, because I promised Dugan off the air that I would come prepared to today's podcast. And I've,
You should be able to now.
yeah, I want to show Dugan how I prepared for this and just give him a little bit breakdown. Like I got about 3 pages of notes here, a little bit of
Very,
a
oh,
space.
very nice. That's perfect. That's perfect.
So, because the listeners at home may not be able to know, but I just wanted Dugan to verify the fact that
Yeah,
I came prepared for today's
definitely
podcast.
came prepared. Yes. Okay. Well, I think we'll jump in. I'll start with U.S. men's national team. Now, recently we haven't announced the full Gold Cup roster yet, but we're looking to. This is recording on the 25th of June for context, but so we're looking to get ready for the Gold Cup. We just won our CONCACAF Nations League in a very exciting match against Mexico. I mean that game against Mexico had it all.
It did. I mean, I wouldn't go as far as exciting. I thought it was a very lucky win. I thought we were lucky to get out of that with a win.
Yeah.
I thought it got off to a hot start, and when we got, I think it was Sebastian Leggett that scored within the first 5 minutes of the game, and I was like, okay, these boys are here to play. They're gonna show us they're here to play, and then just, I mean, they kind of shit the bed there for a little while, let Mexico back into it, and USA versus Mexico is just, it's a storied rivalry, and no matter where we are in the world rankings, that's a team that we can't let them have any momentum, because if we give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, and it came down to
I don't know what the word would be, questioning maybe. I was very unsure about our tactical setup. The 3-4-3 that he occasionally rolls out. Now I'm a huge Greg Berhalter fan, Columbus Crew, so a
yeah.
bit biased in that end, but I don't like the 3-4-3 formation. I think it doesn't give us enough control in the center of the field. And
I've played in a 3-4-3 before. I played it when I was in high school.
mhm.
Um, the thing about the 3-4-3 is you need a very strong defense. You need a very strong central defensive midfielder, and you need a speedy free back. And
I
I
don't think we
don't know
had any of those things. We didn't have
until
any of those
this
things.
is a very young team, and until they get their bearings as a whole, I don't think we should be trying. Now, it's a ballsy formation. Yes, it's a very attacking first based formation, but you need a strong defense. And as good as John Brooks is, he's a very good defender, probably
Hmm.
the best in that core.
Oh, definitely. But he's
But he's not
far
he's not
from.
fit. He's not fit for the 3-4-3, and that's nothing against him. He's a very good center back, but he's not of the free back nature. And
He's too aggressive. That's one of, well,
exactly.
that's his one big weakness. Is he reminds me of Nicholas Otamendi from Man City a lot. Just he'll come for the ball and won't get it, and that's especially in the three back. In a two back, if you got three midfielders, then Well, I also think he was expecting to play Tyler Adams, who he then found was not fit. But like you said with the center midfield, yeah, I mean I thought Weston was as good as he could be, but Kellen Acosta, he was okay, and then I mean Weston was just always outnumbered. It was always 3 to 4 to 1 in the center of the field.
As you mentioned, Weston McKinney, I was actually the most impressed with him. That man was just all over the place. You
He's
know,
matured a ton at Juventus this year.
I think playing with as many guys as we have playing overseas, you know, Weston playing for Italy is probably the best, because Serie A is a very tough league to play. And I mean, hell, AC Milan has been kind of rejuvenated with the addition of Zlatan Ibrahimovic. You know, so I was actually the most impressed with Weston. And Christian scored that late minute PK, and I'm just like, okay, he's
I
doing
love
what
the
he's supposed to.
attitude. I love just like the little bit of now as we get a little bit old. I don't want them arrogant or cocky or anything like that. That's not
No,
good. But to have a little bit of, we're not the meek young guys anymore. Christian, he's got a bit. Well, and I think that's coming from Weston. Whenever there's
Yeah.
a scrap on the field, Weston's the first one in there by a mile.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
he,
I mean, the thing
he
is, these
fights a
aren't
lad.
they aren't the wonder kids anymore. These you know as well as anybody, I have been one of the biggest criticizers of the United States men's national team, probably next to Taylor Twellman. These guys aren't the wonder kids anymore. What I saw from Mexico is, again, my words, not yours. As lucky as a win against Mexico was, I think that this group of players understands, you know, the mess that they have to clean up. They have to qualify for the World Cup, and they have to make a statement in that World Cup. And I think these kids know that. You know,
Well, I
it's a
think the
very
I think the real target would. Well, no, I'm not gonna say real target. Obviously, we're gonna go to Qatar and do the best that we can. But I think everyone is, especially with us hosting in co-hosting in 2026. I think
yeah.
that's the real like semis or minimum. I say 2026, it's semis or minimum, or else the generation is considered a
Are you that
failure.
confident that we're going to qualify for
22.
Qatar? You are you that confident?
Um, well, confident, I guess. Like, there's absolutely no we should qualify. Like, it shouldn't be any kind of issue whatsoever. Um,
I say it's a must.
oh
It's a
yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah. That, especially given the Olympics fiasco, which I was having this conversation with Swats where it's like, there was that strategic decision made not to, to have some of the better players play for the full team and not the U23s. And, was that a mistake? But then at the end of the day, the team that was there was good enough to win. So, we, other than
With
Mexico, we will always have the better team. Or, so as long as, once again, I like Greg Berhalter a lot, but the changing tactics just baffles me, especially given how little time you get with national team players. So if he stops doing that, I think that like I said, there's no reason we shouldn't soundly beat every other team in CONCACAF. There's no other team in CONCACAF that should honestly compete with us. To be completely frank with you,
yeah,
like not even Costa Rica at this point. We should be blowing everyone out. If it's competitive against, if we go down to the Azteca and lose 1-0 in qualification, I'm not gonna have a cow. Which actually, kind of side thing on that, not against us, but the first two home games they'll be forced to play without fans due to the homophobic chants that we heard during that Nations League final. Now, unfortunately, there didn't seem to be any punishment for the throwing of objects by fans, which is just as, if not more, despicable. I mean, Gio Reyna I think he got minorly concussed by one of those things. I don't know if you saw
yeah.
the
They were
clip.
throwing like they're playing in Denver, and I'm assuming it came from Mexican fans that were throwing the things in Christian Pulisic's direction,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
I mean, no matter who it is, obviously it's not okay, but that was who was doing it
exactly.
in that instance. And
Yeah,
I'm
no matter
sure there
who it
was
is,
some people on the U.S. side throwing things as well, but not
I
to
kind
the effect that they were.
I kind of wish Mexico would have gotten a little heftier of a punishment and kind of looped
Hmm.
everything in together. Throwing stuff at Christian and hitting other players because they just happen to be in front of him as they're celebrating the homophobic
Yeah,
chants.
yeah,
It just I wish they would have kind of looped everything from that one event into a heftier punishment and said, all right, this is what's going to happen for the next X amount of games. For the first two, you can't play in front of fans. This is what you get for this. I'm not sure. I didn't see if the fans were charged with anything. I would imagine that they were. If they caught who it was,
yeah.
I would hope that they were caught and they were punished appropriately. But I haven't seen anything of the sort, and I'm not going to sit here and talk on information that I don't know about.
The only thing I think that kind of I see why they can punish them for the chant, but not the throwing stuff is the chant requires cooperation and coordination between a large group of people. If one person is
Was
chanting it, but the throwing of things is a single person decision, you know what I mean? So I could see
yeah,
why they might have a harder time justifying punishing the Mexican Federation for that. But if it what I said is they need to make some kind of some real deadline. Like you have 3 months to figure all this crap out. Anything to do with like any kind of fan misconduct, you have 3 months, and then after this 3 months, any incident whatsoever will bring the hammer down. Because if you do it now, then whoever's the first one to get smacked is gonna cry because the rules weren't established. So that's why I said, give them 2-3 months warning. Be like, listen, you need to get your fans in order, and this is for everyone. Like I said, U.S. fans as well.
Yeah,
Get your fans
absolutely.
in order, and if because in CONCACAF this kind of crap happens all the time. If CONCACAF wants to improve its image, it needs to start tamping
Well,
down stuff like this.
well, we saw just a while back. It was the interleague play with the MLS teams, and the guy that slid from like 25. He came from 25 yards out to take
Oh,
out
the
MLS
Philadelphia. Yeah, I know what you mean. I
Philadelphia
think that
Union.
was
I forget who they
Azul, I
were
want to
playing.
say.
Say
No,
that
it
one more
wasn't
time.
Cruz Azul. It was no. I know what tackle you're talking about, and it's kind of funny because as we're recording this, the Crew just played the Union, and it's been noticed that so that player, I believe it was Kenneth Wagner. Don't quote me on that, but like since then in MLS, he has been going into some not so safe challenges. So you see how it has a knock on effect where someone gets wrecked and then, they start being like, well, why should I hold back if I'm going to get, and the refereeing issue of CONCACAF is a separate, but also those two things, fans, well, okay, I'll put three in there. Fans, refereeing, and field quality are the three things that CONCACAF needs to get figured out, in my opinion.
And when it comes to refereeing, the one thing I would like to see change, I had a conversation with Heidick about this. It was when Van Dyke got taken out by the Everton defender. I hate the offsides over everything mentality. It is 2021, and I think that we've
Yeah,
all
it's such a weird the way that
like,
they've
oh well, if
implemented
he
it.
like, oh, if he wasn't offsides, well, then this wouldn't have happened. Okay, well, you know what? It's 2021, and where I would like to see the offsides over everything mentality scraped from is from shots on goal that are if a shot on goal comes in, it deflects off the goalie, and then a player is playing it, but they happen to be in front of the defensive core, but they're playing the rebound. Well, they were playing the rebound. That's they should be
Yeah.
held for the rebound. I'd also like to see it enforced on tackles. If somebody like the Virgil van Dijk situation, he was playing the corner and got taken out, but the guy wasn't properly punished because Van Dijk was offsides. And they said, well, you know what? If he wasn't offsides, then this wouldn't happen. No, that's a cop out way of enforcing the rules and to not have to do paperwork.
Well, there's also like the other side of it as well is like, things happen that shouldn't even necessarily with the VAR, which I want to get your take on in a second. Like with the whole like they let it play or whatever. And like I understand it and they're right conceptually to like let it play out, but in 85+% of cases, they let it go much longer than there's any necessity to. Like unless there's a direct, clear, someone's going to score a goal in the next like 2 seconds, I think they should call it. Because you see a lot of plays where it goes on and then someone gets hurt where the play shouldn't have even existed. And like I said, I get with especially when it's close, they're not going to raise the flag. That's fair enough. But if the dude's very offside, or if it's been, they also wait like 20 seconds. The longer, the more of those you do, the more unnecessary injuries that would have never even happened in the first place.
Well, the issue for me, Dugan, is that when it comes to offsides, technically the line judge supersedes the center referee in terms of offsides. But the
That's
center referee,
that's not correct.
it's not correct. I thought it was.
No, the AR is a suggestion. The center can ignore their AR's flag if they want to.
Okay. See, that's where I think the issue is. Then now that I know that, because I always thought that the line
Well,
judge
especially in the
superseded.
modern game, especially they got the earpieces, so they can communicate to each other. Like
Yeah, and it's
it's
just
not
like
as it's not
unless they're like 5-6 yards offsides and it's blatant offsides, call it right there. But like if you're gonna let it play out, don't call back a goal because you decided to let you let offsides. Oh, but then they scored, so now you're gonna call it offside. Like it, the way that things are called just makes no sense. It's
yeah.
all
It's But
It's
well,
a very
okay.
choppy way of calling it. It's
Leading into that, what do you think of VAR and the effect that both like the VAR, the idea of it, and the way that it's been implemented?
the idea of it I like because we have evolved into a technological era. We have the technology, and FIFA is a multi-billion dollar corporation. The issue is soccer referees as a whole are a part of the old boys club. They don't want to evolve with technology, so they will the way I've seen it is they will use VAR to review the play, but then they'll go back and call what they were going to call anyways. I think that they use it just to make it look
Hmm.
good, but I don't think that they use VAR the way that they should.
Hmm.
That's just what I've seen from it being used.
So you think it's an well, and then also like the way that they've written the rules around it, I think are very not I don't know. The way that they wrote rules around it were very loose for open for interpretation. So that's why you see in every different country that has it, though, it's kind of different. So
The VAR is not the end all be all, and I think that it should be based on the fact that you are giving a closer and clearer angle of of the call that's in question. So if you're going to VAR, then you need to make a decision A or a decision B.
hmm
Like
well, what I don't like is that they can kind of almost cheat and use VAR on a crutch. And I'll give you the example. And this is, like I said, this is more in how the rules are written necessarily, where, um, like if a player goes in on a hard challenge, and it's like the referee's not sure if it was a yellow or red. They with the VAR, what they'll do is they'll give them a red because reds are allowed to be reviewed, and then they'll go back and check and see. Well, okay, maybe I'll take the red back. But like that's just like in the way that the rules are written, they have to. So if they thought it was more of a yellow, they're still going to give the red, and then like you see how they kind of use it as a crutch, just based on the way that the very odd ways that they wrote the rules, and like you can look at reds but not yellows, or so that's why I said like the language of implementation, and then what you mentioned, the actual referees themselves being open to it. I think it's implementation, but I think conceptually I like it. I have
I
people
like it as
who
well.
argue that they like the human error aspect of sports, and I can't say that they're inherently wrong, but I mean I prefer the calls to be right to wrong personally, so makes
Yeah,
sense to
I
me.
for me, we're evolving into a technological era. I mean, we already have, but
Sure.
it just it needs to happen. VAR is good in theory, but it's been poorly executed, and it's more of a hassle than it needs to be. It could be greatly used, but I'm not seeing it, and I think we're seeing officiating crews want to go off human error versus what's conclusively right in front of them. And it's like you said, unfortunately, the rules of VAR are written so that it's more of a suggestion than this is what you have to do if you're using VAR. It's more like, okay, well, take this into consideration as
And
you're
it's
using.
also like, but from competition to competition, it's you could have Columbus Crew play Philadelphia in MLS, and the VAR rules are this, but then they play in the U.S. Open Cup, and the VAR rules might be slightly different or something like and referees have to keep track of the different variations when they're doing So I don't want to put it all on the referees, but there are those who are fighting against change or whatever. But I'm sure there are those who are trying to, and it's just like the way that it's written and all that stuff versus I don't know. So it's going to take time, a couple years to get it quite right. But I also remember goal line technology. It took not as long, but it took a little bit for us to get that quite right too. But I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that. I think goal line technology makes total sense. So, um, okay, so I just real quick on men's national team. I know you have thoughts on a lot of the players. So, do you maybe just kind of want to go player by player and give me your thoughts, and I will.
I mean, well, let's start it off with this. You know, you had addressed addressing the excitement of the World Cup, or not the World Cup. Wow, the men's national team. And my question for you is, what is with the boner that everybody has with Christian Pulisic? I don't get it. He's a great player. He really is. But he came on in the Champions League final as a sub, and the second he came on, like literally the second he touched the field, everybody had graphics about how he was the first member of the men's national team to play in a Champions League final. And it's just like,
That's
okay,
exciting, I guess.
let's take a step back. I mean, yeah, it is, but at the same time,
No,
I don't
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, no, I
like all
I
he
get
did
what
was
you're
step
saying.
to the field and he played for like 30 minutes and he didn't do anything.
Yeah, okay. I do understand what like the point you're trying to make. Um, but I would say yeah, it is kind of wrapped up in the he is the face of the most, all the excitement from the entire squad is kind of wrapped up into him, if you will. The excitement about Weston, and well, especially given that he's in the Premier League, which is much more visible to the United
Yeah.
States viewership than La Liga or Serie A. No, I'm privileged enough to have ESPN Plus, so I was able to watch some of Weston during his season at Juventus. But for people who only get to see Premier League, makes sense in that regard. Um,
Premier League's on NBC Sports Network or NBC in the morning and whatnot. Yeah, it's more of a mainstream coverage than
Yeah,
Serie
well, I
A.
mean, and then just for a variety of reasons, cultural, language, whatever, the Premier League is going to be more popular in America than other leagues outside of broadcasting rights. But since NBC brought it in 2013, I mean, I think they've done a fantastic job of bringing soccer to the United States since they brought it in 2013 and really took it seriously. And because before then, broadcasts would just be kind of like, oh, here is this weird soccer thing. How goofy is this? Or we would get like Gus Johnson or whatever on the call. I mean, good guy, but dude didn't know soccer.
Yeah. No, we just need to get rid of Alexi Lawless on Fox Soccer.
Yeah, I could not agree. Well, I'm terrified that they're gonna let Landon Donovan start commentating. Hey guys, this reminds me of all the goals I scored.
Do you remember? Oh my God. Do you remember when Clint tied the record and he said on air, "Hey, Clint, it's okay to go ahead and stop right now if you want." And I'm like, you, you egotistical sack of shit.
Speaking of Clinton
You
Dempsey, he
already
looked.
ruined Jurgen Klinsmann's career. What more do you fucking want?
Yeah.
You're the
Speaking of
reason you're
Clinton
Jurgen.
Dempsey,
You're one of the main. He's one of the like people don't want to have that conversation, but he's one of the main. Thank you for what you did for the United States men's national team and raising
he
the
was a
quality.
cancer on the 2014 camp for sure.
He was a cancer. He's part of the reason why Jurgen got fired. Jurgen stood
Or
up to the federation.
2018, sorry, not 2014. No, yeah, 2014. Sorry, I'm getting my numbers all mixed up.
You're all
2014
good. You're
camp.
you're good. You're good. It's just one of the better players in men's national team history. There's no denying that. There's no denying how much he elevated the quality of play on the national team. There's no denying what he did as a player. But people don't want to have this conversation. Landon Donovan is one of the main reasons why Jurgen Klinsmann eventually got sacked. So let's go back. I don't. Do you remember? Do you remember
Absolutely.
who? Do you remember who was coaching before Jurgen? I cannot. I cannot.
Well, Jurgen, I believe it was.
Was it Bob
No,
Bradley?
no, Bob Bradley.
Was it Bob? Okay,
Bob
so
Bradley was in 2010, and then before him, I'm pretty sure Bruce Arena took us to 06.
yeah, because Bruce Arena was interim between Jurgen and now Greg Berhalter.
Yes, yes. Well, he
So
was interim, and then we had like a year and a half interim, which that was a whole nother issue where we waited almost a year and a half to appoint Greg, which
yeah,
just basically cut into his work time. It didn't make any sense. But
yeah.
continue.
So we get rid of Bob. Like Bob retired and went off into the sunset. I got nothing against Bob. I personally thought he was a great
I like what
coach.
he's doing at LAFC.
Yeah, he's a great coach. I've got nothing against him. Landon Donovan retired from the men's national team. Flat out said, "I'm done. This is my
Took like a
last game."
6 month sabbatical from soccer, like
In general, he said, "I'll probably come
back.
back to LA, but in terms of the international game, I'm done." Jurgen comes in, and then along comes Paulie Landon Donovan saying, "Oh, I'm back. I'm back. I'm coming back." Blah blah blah. And Jurgen goes, "Wait a minute.
Like
You
I've
just
got this whole
retired."
system I've been building with all these other players. I can't just like jam you in there.
exactly. And from what he said, he basically was like, you can come try out because you're Landon Donovan. You can come try out, but I'm not guaranteeing you anything. And
Sure,
then
yeah.
he shows up to the summer training camp that year looking like he ate Andreas Iniesta,
Mm-hmm.
and then he gets cut from the next major tournament roster, and everybody loses their minds. And it's like, wait a minute, he just said he retired, and he was still granted a trial based on the reputation he built. But because he was cut and left off that roster, and because he had more of a positive impact than the guy who just got there as the head coach, the federation was like, oh well, if Landon doesn't like him because he got cut, well
Well, and
then
then
maybe
all his friends in the ESPN media, like you mentioned Lawless, but that whole kind of core group of kind of what you talk about with referees who don't like change, that Alexi Lawless, that core of group, they don't like progressive tactics. They want to see us play a 4-4-2 and kick and run and be all, we got nothing, we got attitude, and that's all we need. Oh, that's another reason why Christian is so exciting, because he represents a new kind of American superstar, someone who's not just got like good attitude and work. Dempsey was a good player, but he like
he
technically
was
talking, he was
Dempsey,
not.
Dempsey was a silent assassin. Dempsey moved in silence, and when he made plays, boy, you needed to watch.
But in
I
terms of
love
like objective quality, the players that we are pumping out now are the best players we have ever seen. Like in terms of
correct.
technical ability, Christian, Gio, Sergino, probably three of, if not the best objectively technical players we've ever had. That's where
Correct.
I think a lot of the excitement gets wrapped up, is because it's a new kind of American superstar.
And the thing is, a lot of these guys got to where they were because it was Jurgen who told the youth guy, because these guys were it's 2021. So this was 7 years ago. A lot of these guys were on the
16s to
U23,
U18s.
U15 teams. You talk about Christian Pulisic going over to Germany at 15. He was 14 at the time. Who was the head coach
Mhm.
at that time? Jurgen Klinsmann. It was JK who
Specifically to
said,
Germany.
he started with Christian Pulisic, sending those guys over and was like, if you feel like you can do it, go ahead and go. Because it was Jurgen who said the best players in the world play overseas. They don't play in the MLS. And the MLS commissioner at the time did not like that. And that was strike two on Jurgen Klinsmann, because he didn't want to, breed the guys
And Landon
homegrown.
Donovan was very focused on legacy crafting at that point. He was focused on creating a legacy. He at that point, I'm sure he already knew the MVP award was going to be named. Him and Don Garber are thick as thieves.
Well, the issue is Landon Donovan had a chance to to do some good work in the EPL. I think he played for Everton on loan for a year. He
I
played for
was going to say the same thing. If he didn't have the ego needing to be the biggest fish in the lake, then he could have been a solid player for a mid-tier EPL team and would have been a
yes,
better player for it. But he
he was
decided he'd rather be a superstar than a better player.
he wanted to be a big fish in a small pond. And I'm sorry, but the MLS compared to everywhere else in the world is a small pond. And that's
But
not
he
an
had to be the
opinion.
best. He had to be an MVP. He
The
couldn't just
thing
be a
the thing
good
is, that's
player.
not that sounds like a very opinionated statement, but I back that up with the fact that Zlatan Ibrahimovic at 38 years old, he sat out for almost a year because he had ripped his ACL in
Oh, at Man
half.
United, it was really rough. Yeah.
Yeah, he ripped his ACL in half at Man United, had surgery in England, rehabbed at Man U. Was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to America and play there. Came over at 38 on a new knee and just tore it up. Scored from 45 yards.
I think an even better example. Well, because everyone knows Zlatan is one of the best. I think an even better example is Sebastian Giovinco, because he was just kind of like an average player for a couple decent clubs, and then came over here and was just like a god.
Well, let's talk about how I don't
He
know
was
if
a
you've seen
god
it.
when he was here.
Yes, yes, but I don't know if you've seen it. But Antoine Griezmann just said that he thinks he would love to end his career in
A
America.
lot of players are saying that Messi. Well, Messi
I don't
said
I don't know what Messi's doing. Messi's up and down. The issue is
any player who's interested in branding, it makes sense as a business move.
the thing is these players are spending 10, 15 years in La Liga, Serie A, EPL, uh, Bundesliga. They're spending all this time overseas, and then they're coming over at 34, 35 on the tail end of their career and still running roughshod. Another prime example is one of my favorite players ever of all time, Ricardo Kaká.
Yeah.
He tore his ACL at Real, had a somewhat okay career, but he was never the same and couldn't keep up with the Spanish game. That's not a knock on
No, that was
anything or
one of the
any.
most disappointing. I mean, that
It
summer.
was
That's
disappointing.
so.
It was disappointing in the fact that he's one of my favorite players, but let's call a spade here, Dugan. He just couldn't keep up with the Spanish game. He couldn't.
No, that's fair
But then
enough. That's as a Real Madrid fan, I get very nostalgic for that summer. Not only did we bring in Cristiano and Kaká, but that's also the summer we brought in the Big Benz, who I've said if Cristiano went to a different club, Benzema would have a Ballon d'Or.
right.
Definitely.
And so
And Xabi Alonso.
yes.
What a
So
summer.
you bring in four of the best players in the world at the time, and Kaká was a FIFA World Player of the Year with AC Milan. He won the Champions League in 05.
Last one to win the Ballon d'Or before the Messi Ronaldo duopoly took over.
Correct. Because that was on the heels of the Champions League with one of the greatest Italian players, not named Andrea Pirlo, Filippo Inzaghi.
Well, they also actually no. I think Maldini was retired at that point, but Maldini was the last of that old core of Italian defenders they had. Like it was him, Nesta, Clarence Seedorf was kind of hanging around there towards the late 2010s.
Oh yeah,
But like that
yeah.
old core.
Like the thing is, Kaká I think he took a year off to rehab just to kind of like get his body back to it, and then he comes over for Orlando Pride and
Well, because I think like Orlando was an expansion team, and I think he was waiting like for the team. Like they had made deal with him early, like he was going to be their big name guy, and then like he just kind of had a year until their first season. I believe was the situation.
And so he comes over as part of it. Yeah, you're right, because he came over as part of the face of a new. It was kind of like a Marc-Andre Fleury situation where he was the face of a new franchise expansion team, and
Yeah, because Orlando and NYCFC came in that year, and NYCFC, they had the whole Man City connection, and they were playing in the Yankees, so like they kind of put their identity, if you will, into Kaká from the start.
And I mean,
he have Nani now, but he's not as like central to they've built their brand enough that they're more than just a one-player club, which we'll talk about the growth of MLS in a little bit. Okay, so I thought it might be a little fun to just kind of do a quick little run through of the pool, some of the bigger names in the U.S. men's national team pool, and I just want you to give me a quick 1 to 10 rating on where they are right now in terms of everything, in terms of quality, their age, their club situation. Let's say we were playing the World Cup final tomorrow. What are your rankings for them going into it, if you will? And obviously this is, arbitrary and opinion based, but
I mean,
before anyone gets too salty.
I would give us probably a 60% chance of winning. And I say that because we have 15 players of the active roster right now. There are 15 players playing overseas, and I say 60% chance of winning.
Hold on. Sorry, my roommate just came home. Okay. Sorry about that. So I just kind of want to talk about the pool here and see what your takes on them. And once again, for context, we are recording this on June 25th, 2021. So we'll start at the top. Christian Pulisic.
Christian, on a ranking scale of 1 to 10, I give.
We'll say 10 is the best. I should clarify.
I'll give him about a 7. He started playing in Bundesliga at 15, and he's been in and out of the starting lineup for Chelsea.
Yeah.
He's only 22. So while he's been playing overseas forever, he's still only 22. So I don't think he's reached the tip of the iceberg yet. He's still got
definitely not
in terms of his development, but he's got to find a way. And I don't know if it's from a coaching standpoint, because what I see from social media and what I've seen from games and whatnot, it's because there's coaching issues and whatnot, but he's got to find a way to
tactically really fit what Tuchel's trying to do in a lot of ways.
So he's got to find a way to crack the starting 11. Like if you really want to take this national team the next step forward, I like that he's playing in the EPL, but you got to find a way to consistently crack the starting 11.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I might give him an 8, but I would agree with you. So the two main question marks are the current club situation right now, because I mean, after Project Restart, he was tearing it up. Like at the end of last season under Lampard, before they spent all the, he was really strong. And then the other big question mark is unfortunately that hamstring.
Yeah.
That hamstring, whenever someone, especially if it's the same one over and over, that's worrying. So, you know, but he seems healthy as he's ever been right now, and so hopefully that continues. But those are the two main questions on him right now. I think outside of that, I am nothing but excited for his potential. But those are the two main question marks hanging over him right now.
Yeah.
Um, Gio Reyna, Giovanni Reyna. He's probably what,
I
18,
actually
19, I think.
I like Gio a lot. Obviously playing where Christian played with Borussia Dortmund in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this kid's a little young. He's a little green to the
He's
look.
not in. He's not a week in week out starter yet, but at his age, that's still okay.
He's got his foot in the door, which is huge for his age because he's only 18, but he's playing really well for an 18-year-old that's playing in Germany.
His
I'm
technical
very
ability is something that the U.S. men's national team has rarely ever. I mean, I think it was against
something that
Honduras when he cut back and forth a couple times and sent every. I mean, I was at the bar falling off my chair because he sent me the other way.
two big aspects of Gio's game that will bode extremely well for the men's national team is a he knows how to time his runs, and
Very smart
b
player.
he's not afraid to take shots. And I think playing in Germany has given him that confidence that he's just the German game is very much put the ball on frame and let
Yeah.
traffic take care of it. Seeing as the fact that Germany beat Portugal with 2 own goals, put the ball on frame and let the chips fall where they may. So I
I would
think
definitely agree with you on that one. I think that's one thing we don't shoot enough. That I would agree
yes,
with you on that one.
and Gio's not afraid to take shots. So that's something that really I give him a 6 out of 10 just because of his age, but it's a strong six. He I think him along with Weston have the highest potential out of anybody, to be completely honest.
Okay. Well, let me think what I would. I might, once again, I think I'm going to go slightly above you. I think maybe give him a 7, especially given I think his club situation is very ideal for him right now. Not playing week in week out, he's going to be okay. But then also, Dortmund is
He still has a lot to
Dortmund
learn
is
about the
known
German
as a
game.
development club, so he's going to A, develop, and then B, they're known as a selling club, so he's going to kind of have a decent pick of where he wants to go after, or if he wants to stay there too, it'll work. So I think his club situation is very fortuitous for him right now.
I mean, Dortmund is the German version of Ajax. You know, they develop and then sell.
Exactly. That's why I don't think he should go anywhere anytime soon. But yeah, it's a very good club to be a young developing player at. You mentioned him, so I want to go to who I think, in my opinion, might be the best player in the pool, Weston McKennie. I'd give him an.
I I think playing under Cristiano Ronaldo and playing in Serie A, where Serie A is just top to bottom is one of the toughest leagues to play in. I think it's so good for him and his potential. You know, I think he's matured a lot, having to play against the Zlatan Ibrahimovic, having to play against the Romelu
And there
Lukaku.
was there was some questions about the work ethic, and no one preaches work ethic like Cristiano Ronaldo. And
That's why he has a
I think you've seen
washboard abs at 35 years old.
Yeah, I think you've seen the knock-on effect it's had on Weston. Like I said, not just I was mentioning before that little bit of the edge he brings, but also just the quality. Now, I like his club situation. I think it's Juventus was a little bit of a mess last year under Pirlo. To be fair, they were lacking really any identity, and he was kind of playing a weird outside mid attacking. I think under oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. I know they just appointed someone, but I can't remember off the top of my head who they just appointed. Excuse me, it's Massimiliano Allegri.
Okay.
Massimiliano Allegri, which he has been around Serie A and Juventus many a times. Um, I mean, there is a lot of competition in the center mid at Juventus, but I think well, I mean, he blew Artur out of the water all season last year. Uh,
Yeah.
I personally think Adrian Rabiot is extremely overrated, but some people seem to disagree with me. Um, there are a lot of strong center mids at Juventus. That is one thing that might be an issue, but I
And you've
mean,
got Cristiano Ronaldo who could play center mid or center forward just based on
I
his
don't know if
technical skill.
Ronaldo's going to be there next season. I'm curious to see. I think he might go back to Sporting Lisbon because he doesn't want to be part of a rebuilding project, and right now they're kind of a rebuilding project. No,
No,
as a City fan, I'm really afraid that he'll come back to United. But when they re-signed Cavani, that assuaded my fears a bit because I could really see him doing basically what Zlatan did and coming back to United and tearing it up. So,
I mean that's where he started, so I wouldn't be
well,
surprised.
exactly. That's why if he's going to go back to the EPL, it would be to United. But I'm glad to see as a City fan that that's not happening. But anyway,
You know,
so
I think out of all of them, I think Weston has the best situation, and I think I was pleasantly surprised with how much he matured with his on field presence and the fact that he wasn't afraid to get up in the box, he wasn't afraid to get in on tackles. He's just not afraid anymore, and I think
and
like you said, playing
he was able to escape that Schalke disaster, that
yeah,
sinking ship. That was very good that he was able to get out of there.
yeah. So just playing under Cristiano Ronaldo, I think has boded well for him in the maturity of his person as well as his soccer IQ and his soccer skill. So I would probably give him about an 8.
Fair enough. Yeah. So Gino Dest, another one of my favorites.
I like, I mean, he's only 20, so I think he's got a long road ahead of him. I like that he's playing for Barcelona. He's learning under Messi, but I mean, Barcelona's kind of a shit show right now.
They brought in a couple outside backs this summer, which is a little concerning for me. They recalled Emerson from Real Betis, who's a really
Yeah,
solid outside back. But he can also play on the one of he can play both sides too, which I think is very
yeah,
interesting.
he's like a utility man. He can kind of play really wherever. Um,
He could probably play
I
on the
kind of like
wing if
to,
we needed him to.
I kind of like to see him utilized as like a central defensive midfielder and kind of be like a Julie Ertz situation where he's orchestrating between the offense and the defense because he's got the offensive talent, but he's also
I
really
think that's
good
the
at.
kind of role we want Tyler Adams playing, though.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I
I,
just
I, I see what you're saying, but given the players we have, he's best. I think I think
you
that's
think Tyler Adams is more of that central defensive holding
well, that's what
type
he
of.
plays more regularly as well.
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
well, and
I just
especially knowing the Greg Berhalter system of attacking fullbacks and like the runs that he likes his fullbacks to make and stuff. So Gino's going to be getting a lot of opportunities to cut the ball back from the goal line back to like the pen spot for someone. There's going to be a lot of him doing that. So I think we should, and especially if if he plays on the right side of Barcelona and Messi's there because Messi always cuts and that overlap at Barcelona, and that's what I think we want him developing as a very dangerous because Gio's a cut inside winger as well.
yeah.
So and especially
I
more in the
just
Greg Berhalter system.
I just he's he has the thing is with Serginho Dest is that he's got the potential to be great. He's just good at a lot of things. So it's finding that one niche of his game that he's better at than the rest of them and just saying, okay, this is what you need to focus on. But again, he's at FC Barcelona
And he's
and
still young too.
he's still young and they developed Messi. And, regardless of everything that Messi's ever accomplished, it was Ronaldinho who said, the biggest regret of my career is not negotiating my contract to stay a little longer at Barcelona and play with Messi.
Yeah. Well, I think with the signing of Sergio Aguero, they've got him placated enough that he'll stay.
Yeah.
And they got rid of the old president that he didn't like, so I think that they'll be able to keep him at least for another year.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'd give Dest probably about 6.5, just because I want to wait and see how they develop him and
yeah,
see how he responds to, like you said, a lot of the backs that they've brought in, and just to see kind of where they put him heading into the new season and see how he adapts to where he's being put.
I don't think it would be, depending on how that shakes out. I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world if he went out on like a season-long loan to someone where he could play with And that might not be the worst situation for him, just depending
Yeah.
on, preferably he stays and wins his spot. But like I said, they're bringing in a lot they're bringing in a lot of outside backs. So if it's a situation where he's not going to be playing much, I'd prefer to see him loaned out to a
Take a
mid-table La Liga squad.
take a take a
Because
Tim
I
Howard
think,
approach to take a Tim Howard approach to his career.
yeah, well, and I think La Liga kind of fits his style of play. He's not super robust, strong dude, not yet anyway. But John Brooks, probably our best. Well, not probably, definitely our best defender.
Um, I would say he's probably one of the best complete players that we have.
Yeah,
Um, you know,
healthy.
he's only 28, but he was the wonder kid on the 14 team. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
everybody remembers that it's John Brooks, it's John Brooks, it's
Yeah.
John Brooks. Um, he learned from he learned from some of the baddest men's national team players. He was around when Oguchi Onyewu was there. He was around when Clint Dempsey was there. He was around with Landon Donovan, with Michael Bradley. He was around for some of the bad motherfuckers of the men's national team.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he kind of serves. He's again, he's only 28, but he serves as one of the older guys on the
Yeah, he's
team.
the veteran captain kind of. Yeah.
I mean, next to Tim Ream, he's one of the oldest guys on the team. So that's why I say he's one of the most complete players, because he's been around a while. He's just such a solid defender, and I mean, he's playing in Germany right now. But even before he got to Germany, he was just a solid brick house of a human being. And what I love the most about John is that he is just he's not afraid. He's not afraid to get 6 feet under. He's not afraid to get up. He's not afraid to make the plays that need to be made. And when in the downward trajectory of the men's national team from 14, 15, 16 to about now, I felt the most bad for him, because I'm like, man, this kid is one of the best that
Mm-hmm.
we've got, and this kid cares, and he doesn't deserve this. So I'm glad that he's still around. I'm glad that the defense is being built around him. This is
Passer
one of
too.
the
He's a very good passer with the ball as well.
he's got such a good IQ. He makes the passes that need to be made. He does the basic things great. He's not a ball handler, so he's not going to try and be Lionel Messi. If he sees an open man, he's going to make that play. If he
Mm-hmm.
sees Christian Pulisic, breaking down the line, he's going to make that pass over top. If he sees Weston McKennie in the center of the field, he's going to rip it to him. He makes the plays that he knows he can make. He makes the plays that need to be made, and he doesn't play outside his means. And I've got nothing but respect for a player like that knows who he is and plays within his means, because he's been doing it for 7 years now. So this is one of the few ratings I'm going to give him a 10 out of 10, because he's the most complete player we got. He's the best defender we got.
I
You
I'm
were
gonna
I
I'm gonna
know
disagree
the
with him. I'm gonna give him an 8.
That's
Well,
fine.
two things. There's only two things. I mentioned
That's
before,
fine.
when he comes for the ball and doesn't get it. He does that too much, especially when a dude's shielding. He'll try to get around him and steal it, and the dude will
His
just win
aggression
him.
his aggression gets the better of him, and I will agree with that. And I want to tell the viewers at home, when I said I gave him a 10 out of 10, Dugan's eyes probably about rolled outside of his of his head. So hey,
Well,
this
the
is
only other thing too that I would say, the only thing, and I could maybe even get over that because it's not every game, but the only thing that I think would stop him from being a 10 is the fitness issues.
yeah.
It's when he's fit, which he has a lot of. In That's not anything against him personally. It's just a statement of fact that he does have staying fit and healthy. And when he's not there, I mean, it's a testament to his quality that when he's not there, we always feel it. So
The best part about talking soccer with you, Dugan, is the fact that you and I will usually disagree more than we agree. But what I respect about you is you're not afraid to hold. You don't hold back from me, and I appreciate that. So that's why I love having these
yeah,
conversations with
absolutely,
you, because you're not
absolutely.
afraid to let me have it, and I appreciate that.
No,
I knew
I always try to
I
provide counterpoints as well. Even if I don't necessarily, even if I agree with someone, I'll still try to provide counterpoints just for the sake of um,
devil's
intellectual
advocate.
rigor. One of the younger, but probably one of the most like high potential, Yunus Musa. Now I know we have seen very little of him so far, but
It's
every time I
difficult
see
because
him, it's very exciting.
it's difficult because he plays in. You said it was USA.
Yunus Musa.
Yeah,
He plays
it's
for Valencia.
yeah. It's difficult because he plays in a lower tier team in Spain.
And he's all well. He's one as a 17-year-old. He's not a week in, week out. And he also they kind of
He's only,
shuffle him. Sometimes he plays on the wing, and sometimes he plays in the center. I think he's best in the center,
he's
personally.
what I like about Eunice is from what I've seen, he's an offensive spark. He's kind of got that super sub to him. He's kind of like our version of Chicharito.
He's very
Um,
north south. I like his north south acceleration
yeah, he
with the ball. We don't have
like
anyone
like
who can run with the ball that quickly out of the midfield.
like Gio, he knows just how to time his runs. And he doesn't turn the Jets on until he has to. He's very exciting. He's that offensive spark. So for right now, I think he's very solid in his super sub role. I would like to see him put a little more weight on just because I think he's kind of built like a little bit of a twig.
Yeah, no,
And
I'd agree.
when you're playing in La Liga, when you're playing in the international games, we saw what happened to Messi. Messi got tossed around like a rag doll. And I don't want to see that happen to Eunice. Now, Messi was able to recover from that, obviously, but I don't want to see that happen to Eunice. I'd like to see him put a little more
Yeah,
weight
but
on.
he. I don't even think he's 18 yet. So
No, he's
definitely, I would
he's
agree with
18,
you.
and
Oh, he's
and
18.
that's a minor bitch because he is 18 and he's gonna fill out into his body as
Sure.
he continues to grow in age. But I think he's got another high ceiling of potential that he could reach. I would give him probably a 7 or an 8 just based off the excitement factor that I've seen from
Mm-hmm.
him and just seeing what he's been able to provide us. I'm going to agree with you in the fact that I like his north south, running. He doesn't go outside. He just sees ball. This is where I want to go. Boom, I'm going there.
Mm-hmm.
He's very precise.
He's decisive.
So
One of my personal favorites, once again, Columbus fan here, Zach Steffen,
you
Man
like him
City
because he
backup.
plays for Columbus and Man City. Come on.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, I like him, but he very clearly has some weaknesses. He needs to figure out.
He
He just, for me,
he's a
he's just very
roller coaster.
casual. He's just way too casual sometimes. He
And the
reminds
thing
he
is that
reminds me of Trey
his
Roller back there. Sometimes he's gonna head the ball up to himself. That's another drink for that one.
Zach Steffen, he's a roller coaster for me. And it's disappointing to say that because
Yeah.
he was the prodigy under Tim Howard. So how like you said, he's a very casual player. How are you a casual player when you took the reins from Tim Howard? I don't understand that.
Yeah. I think he still has a little bit more maturing to do.
Yes,
But as a
I
goalkeeper, their
think his
age range
time
is a little bit more extended. So
I think his time at Man City will mature him. At least I hope it will. Um, if that doesn't, then I think what him going out on injury and Ethan Horvath coming in and extremely saving the day in the CONCACAF Nations Championship tournament.
well, I like Horvath a lot.
Oh, I like Horvath a lot too,
But he's
but
also in a situation where he's number 2 at his club behind Simon Mignolet.
yeah. So you kind of saw that, that desperation from Ethan, but I've got nothing against Ethan. I just,
Zach has
there's
very
other
high potential. He just doesn't. He's not quite hitting it.
the issue is that he and Stefan are the same age, and Stefan was tabbed as the next man up after Tim Howard. So
I
unfortunately, he
think
has
on
to
his day,
compete.
Steffen's better.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's
It's
just
just getting him on his day, unfortunately.
and it's like okay, Zach Steffen is like okay, he's kind of like Phil Kessel almost of the NHL, where he's just like, all right, well, do you want to show up and be the best player today, or you just want to show up and kind of laissez-faire your way through the game? And it's like at the goalie position, you can't laissez-faire your way through. You got to
Very
be.
Yaya Toure-esque, if you will.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment. I give Zach Steffen a 5, honestly, just because
Yeah.
you know
He can't be giving the ball out of the back. That's well, okay. So the two outside of the casualness, the two biggest issues for me is he cannot give the ball away outside. I mean, that's just like if the goalkeeper gives the ball away out the back, yeah, you're done. The other thing, he sometimes comes for crosses and doesn't get them, and that
Yeah.
is another thing you can't do as a goalkeeper. And
And
it's
that's why
something
you
that he
have
does
a
a
guy like
lot.
John Brooks. Like John Brooks can win headers all day. You just sit back and wait. If you can catch the ball, then go catch it. But if you think it's going to be a header, then let your
Or
captain
even
of the
Josh Sargent bail you out.
yeah, like I mean, Zach is just a it's so difficult because
He's very
like
frustrating right now.
yes, and the reason I hold Zach to a little bit of a higher standard is because this was the man that was tabbed to take over for Tim Howard. And if you're going to take over for Tim Howard, you better be ready to go.
Yeah.
So and he hasn't been. I'm sorry, but he hasn't been.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I also, like I said, he's still, I don't know, I don't think he's even really hit half because goalkeepers kind of can kind of play for longer. I
Right.
I'm
I mean, we
I'm
saw so
optimistic that, like I said, by 2026, I think he's going to be. The hope is that he'll be world class by then.
oh yeah, I mean, so to be fair, we talk about Tim Howard. He started his EPL career at 24 and didn't hit his stride until 28 when he played for 4 years with Man U and then he went on loan because it was like, all right, he was kind of in a 2-3 situation at Man U.
Yeah,
And Sir Alex was like, all right, well, you know what? There's nothing against you, but you're gonna
he's
get
just
more
not at
work
the
on.
level. He wasn't at the level.
Well, it wasn't that he was at the level. It was just like it was a three. It was a good goalie. It was a good three goalie situation. And Sir
Hmm.
Alex was like, "All right, well, you know what? Go ahead and get some work. Nothing against you, but Everton needs a goalie. They want you. Go get some work." He went, got some work, and then just never came back. And it happened to work out that he held it down for the boys in blue
Yeah.
for 10 years.
Ederson's only
So
1 year older than Zach. That's a big issue. Ederson is one of, if not the best goalkeepers in the world right now.
yeah,
And the fact that Zach's only a year younger, that's which I've said. I think Zach should try to get a year-long loan next year.
yeah.
But
Take the Tim Howard approach. It worked out for Tim.
And then, as I said, after that, he comes back and it's on. It's him versus Ederson. You get in, win or go home. And
Yeah,
one of them,
Tim
so he has
because
1 year to take on Ederson for real. And if he quote unquote loses, then he needs to move on. But
again,
if he wins, then he's
Tim was 28 when he got the call to go to Everton, and
exactly. Zach would
he
be
played for
28 at
Everton
that
from
time.
28 to 38, and in that time he was like 35, 36 in the 2014 World Cup where
Yeah.
he had that 14 save game against Belgium.
Hmm.
So yes, he's 26, but big time Tim Howard didn't hit his EPL stride until he was 28. So
That's what I'm
he
saying. It'll
got
come down to when he hits 28, it'll be the make or break time where he either is able to supersede Ederson or he needs to move on. Like it's to no one's benefit. It was good for him this year to be on the bench, be in that club situation, get your cup matches, train with a team like that. That's good. Next year he needs to play every single game for a higher level club. I think a loan to Dortmund might do him well. Personally, I think that'd be a good match. Um, and then, like I said, yeah, at 28, it comes down to it. He's gonna have to fight for it because if Ederson was a couple years older, then maybe he hangs on and waits for his
and
chance.
there's
But
that room for development, but it's not going to happen at Man City at least.
yeah, well, and then if they're at the same age, like I said, he either wins the spot or he needs to go to another team where he can be the starter because him not playing week in week out, it contributes to these things that we're saying where he's maybe a little too casual because he's a little rusty.
Yeah. Now here's my question. We're gonna sidetrack a little bit. You're a Man City fan, so you have more EPL knowledge than I do. We talk about how Tim Howard was put on loan. Was he beat out by David De Gea? Because that
No,
was
that
like
was before De Gea. I want to say
that was
that was.
before De Gea. Okay, because that was the early 2000s. He was there from 06 to 16.
Oh, then that would have been, yeah. They brought in Van der Sar at that point.
Okay, so it was Van der Sar that beat him out. Okay, I just was curious. I can't remember because I knew he
I would
was.
think it was, yeah, it was in that space like between Schmeichel and Van der Sar.
Yeah, because Tim Howard, as far as I'm concerned, he played there. He was at Man U from 02 to 06, and then he was on loan to Everton from 06 to 07, but then it became official from 07 to 16 before he came back to the MLS.
Yeah, yeah, because
And
Van der Sar was
I
goalkeeper
couldn't
when they
remember if
won
that
the
was the
Champions League in
Vandersar
08.
era or if that was the David De Gea.
No,
But
Van der Sar led him to the Champions League in '08.
okay, then it was the Van der Sar era. Okay, that was just a random question. So Stefan gets a 5 out of 10 from me. How about you?
I might lean towards a 6, but I'm also a little biased. So,
That's fine.
let's see who I want to think about who I want to do next. Let's look at the striker situation. How do you feel about my man Giassi Zardes?
Zardes, I again, he's kind of like a Musa situation. I like the excitement factor that he's bringing. Where is he at now?
He
I'm
plays for
not sure.
Columbus.
Plays for Columbus.
Yeah, defending
I'm
MLS.
not too I'm not too familiar with the MLS. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really watch
Yeah,
the MLS, but I from what I've seen him do on the national squad, he's very exciting. I like the spark that he brings.
I
I
like to
just
describe him as the American Olivier Giroud. He's not the best striker. He's not the better striker on paper, but when it comes to especially national teams, like he brings us, like he fills in the empty puzzle spot that we need. He brings the exact attributes we need, and he doesn't have anything. He doesn't have the things we don't necessarily need him to do. But someone who knows where the ball is going to end up at. There's so many instances where we'll put a ball in and there's just no one on the end of it because they don't because the striker, be it Siabacheyu or Sargent, hasn't matured enough to read where to be at the end of the play. That is Jossie Zardes' whole game is tap-ins from the 6 because he knows where the ball. He's a very smart player, and he's also
I
worked
mean,
a lot on his hold-up play lately too, which is another key thing that I think we need more of is better hold-up play from our strikers.
how do you feel about the fact that he's 29 years old? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. He's not. We're talking like right now. He's not someone that I would be bringing to 2026, and I'm not even saying necessarily he should start. But that's why I say he's kind of our Olivier Giroud. He's
Yeah.
he's
I
one of
mean,
the older heads. He's one of the
he's
more
been with the national team for a while
exactly
now.
that too, and he's got. I mean, I kind of know a little bit more about him, being that he's a crew player, and I follow him, and he's got very good intangibles too. He's the kind of player you would want on the bench. Something I would also unfortunately, he's kind of fallen off in terms of quality, but Will Trapp is another person who's got great intangibles, someone you would want, in the not necessarily playing, but someone who'd be a very positive force in the 23. But I don't think Will Trapp has anywhere near the quality at this moment which is unfortunate.
Do you have Zardes on your 22? If the World Cup
I would
qualifying
bring him.
roster,
I would
you would
bring him.
bring him
Would I
in.
start him? Would I start him? I think it would depend on the opponent. I think you bring him, Sargent, and Siabacheyu because they each bring kind of something different.
Yeah.
And then I think it's very much dependent on the game, who we're
The
playing.
the issue with Zardes, and I'm not an excuse maker. You know that his best year was 2019, and that's when he was hitting his stride. But then
Yeah.
everything was cut short by the pandemic. Do you think that that had an effect on his mentals, or
Well, I think, and this is kind of a separate issue we'll get into. I think every player in the world who's been asked to play as much as all these players have all been ground down mentally in some form or another. Well, and a lot of them, like I said, I want to talk about this a little bit later in the context of the Christian Eriksen situation. But I mean, statistically, the number of injuries that have occurred since Project Restart and these extremely congested schedules is, well, I mean, it kind of tells the whole story. The players
yeah?
say, "Hey, this is dangerous for us to play this many games," and the owners say, "Well, I like money."
Yeah. I mean, Zardes isn't a bad player. He's not in my starting 11. Um,
No,
you
no,
know,
he's not gonna get any pulses exciting. But like I said, that's why I think he's our Olivier Giroud. On paper, no, not the greatest player, but he checks exactly the boxes we need to check, no more, no less. And that's why I like him. But then I also like the idea of bringing on someone like a Sia Bacheyu off the bench, someone with a little bit more. Jossie lacks dynamism is the one thing. Early on in his game, he was very much quick sprint past you. He's matured, and I like the player he's become, but he's not super dynamic or explosive. Is the only thing, and like Sibachev and Sargent are both very explosive and dynamic.
Zardes is, he's kind of like that national team practice squad player. You have him on the roster and you have him for the inter squad scrimmages, but he's probably not going to. But I mean, he'll also answer the call if it's needed.
And that's why I
I
said
think I
that's
get.
why the intangibles matter, and I think he has very good intangibles, which is
I would.
important to
I would
consider
give
in
him
a
a.
23.
I'd give him a 6 out of 10. What say you?
I think that's about spot on, yeah. If you take everything into account, and also, the fact that he's got a stable club situation, all that stuff. I think you got to give him a little extra bump as well because Greg Berhalter's system, he knows how to play, Greg's got a very specific system of playing that involves strikers putting in a lot of tap ins from inside the 6 yard box, but they have to know when to be there and how to be there. And that is what Jossie does. So that is why, specifically given we play for Greg Berhalter, if we played any other way, then no, I probably wouldn't include him on the roster. But that plus the excellent intangibles that he brings, I think he should be a lock for the 23. Whether or not he plays very much depends on, I think, how Sargent. I think Sargent has been developing well. It's his presence inside the box is. I think Jossie blows Sargent out of the water inside the 18. Outside the 18, Sargent's superior.
Sergeant all day.
Inside the 18, Jossie is still a better player. So until that is not the case anymore, I would lean towards Jossie because I want a striker who's going to put the ball in the back of the net.
The thing is, Sargent's only 21 versus.
Oh yeah, exactly. Now for 2026, I'm hoping the Sargent's going to be like an absolute. Well, even in 22, I'm but we're speaking right now. Jossie is literally right on the peak of his prime, so I also have to keep that in consideration as and like we said, it's a young team, so at
Would
29,
you
he's kind of an old head.
would you go as far as to say he's a bubble player, or would you have him on your roster, like regardless, like no matter what, he's on your roster?
I'd say at this moment, no matter what, he's on the roster.
Fair.
From a combination of like I said, the intangibles, and then just with the strikers we have right now at this moment. Like I said, maybe a year or two from now, if Sargent has continued to develop as we hope he is, then maybe you don't need Jossie. You can bring like a Giacolini or Gioacchini or whoever that dude's name is, or even
Or
a
you can you
Matthew
can
Hoppe. Matthew Hoppe for Schalke. I know they just got
you,
relegated, but he's really exciting.
yeah, you can like if Sargent continues on the upward trajectory that he's been on, you can maybe solidify him into his
I see a
role, and then
Pacheco as well. I like
yeah,
Pacheco.
yeah, you can have continue to have your eyes on the future and continue to build.
Yeah, but yeah, right now, yes. Um, just given the development still needed by the rest of the forwards, but if that's what I said. Just given right now, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like a France situation. They have Olivier Giroud, but if they have Benzema, Olivier Giroud is not playing anymore.
True, very true,
So that's why I
very.
say he is Olivier Giroud. But France won the World Cup with Olivier Giroud. He didn't score a single goal, but
Wasn't
he
Zidane the coach of that team?
no. He was at Real Madrid. I want to say it was
I could have sworn it
no,
was.
not Blanc. Totally spacing. I know. I could picture his face right now too. Didier Deschamps. It's Didier Deschamps is the French coach.
Yeah.
I know. I want to say Laurent Blanc, but that was
No, it was Deschamps. It was Deschamps.
yep.
I mean, the thing is, that was such a young, badass team. I mean, I love
But they
rooting
had their
for.
old veterans like Giroud. That's what I'm saying. Jossie is
The,
our
the thing is,
Giroud.
you had the young sparks in Paul Pogba and N'Golo Kante who could do the brunt work,
Mbappe.
and Kylian Mbappe. Yeah, who that was kind of like his. I don't want to say his coming out party in terms of how big he was, because he
I
was.
think it was the coronation of his coming out.
Yeah, like it was just he was on an upward trajectory with PSG, and then it just
It
continued.
affirmed that he's now in that upper tier with. Well, okay. Let me ask you this: do you think that Messi and Ronaldo are alone in their own tier anymore, or do you think anyone else is?
No,
No,
I don't. I don't think they're alone anymore, and here's why. They haven't led their teams to the World Cup. They haven't. They are two of the best players of all time. There's no disputing that.
I'm just talking maybe just in terms of like pure quality. For the past decade, no one has even been close to them in terms of quality. Do you think at this point anyone has gotten up to their like ability. Now, I hear the two names that I hear the most are Mbappe and Holland. Do you think, or anyone else, do you think anyone has gotten to their tier yet, or are they still kind of on their own at this point?
I would say Mbappe has gotten there because he's won a World Cup and he has been doing his damnedest to rejuvenate PSG.
How
They
about
brought
Kevin
in
De Bruyne?
Kevin De Bruyne.
Is he on the same level as Messi, Ronaldo, and Mbappe?
I would say the health is an issue for me, but he is one
Yeah.
of the best midfield. He is one of the best midfielders in the world
Mm-hmm.
right now. I've told you that before. He is one of the best midfielders.
But is he on that Ballon d'Or tier?
I would say
He's got 1 foot in, 1 foot in, 1 foot
I
out.
would say he's got 1 foot in. Okay, so
Just stay
Kylian
healthy
Mbappe,
for a full season.
yeah, if he's healthy for a full season, he needs to be the Ballon d'Or. The issue is he makes the plays that don't get really credited for. He is that
Secondary
stabilization.
assists. Yeah, a lot of secondary
He
assists.
he is that playmaker. He is that silent assassin. He makes the plays that nobody really sees. You know, if he's healthy for a full year, if he's healthy for a full 2, 3, 4 years, he's one of the best players on the planet. He's one of the best midfielders right now. But if he's healthy for a decent stretch, then yeah, he's Ballon d'Or for
I
sure.
think you could reasonably argue that he's got one of, if not the highest, soccer IQs at the moment.
Oh yeah, 100%. That midfield has been built around him, and
And he's been
it's
learning
it's
from Pep and Fernandinho, too.
it's hard to build around a player that is injured, but again, they still have been building around him. And Man City is the EPL version of the Real. They're not afraid to spend the money, and they've been doing it around him. There's no questioning the fact that he is the centerpiece of that team.
Yeah.
Is he in the tier of Messi and Ronaldo? I would say yeah. I would give 2022 is going to be Belgium's year to make a statement because hopefully you'll have a healthy Hazard brother duo. You'll have
Well,
a
the problem
healthy
with Belgium is their defense is not. They only brought 5 defenders to the Euros, and 4 of the 5 of them are over 32, and they play
yeah.
a three back.
The thing
That's an
the thing is
issue.
with their defense, they're a little too reliant on Axel Witsel, and that's my personal opinion. I think they're a little
He's
too
another one
reliant.
with well, now Tielemans for Leicester had a fantastic season, but especially if your back three is going to be in it, well, it seems to continue until they find someone new. It's going to be Alderweireld, Vermaelen, and Vertonghen.
Yeah.
They're all over 33, and they're playing a three
How
back.
old's Mertens though?
Of course, they're going to get exposed on pace.
How old's Mertens? Because he's up there too. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an attacker. He's like 30. He's later in his career for sure.
Yeah. It's just
They have all these attackers and no defenders.
yeah. And then you're relying on guys like Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard and his brother and Romelu Lukaku. And it's like, okay, these are some of the best players in the world right now.
But if they
But
lose the ball, they're giving up a counter goal every time.
exactly because they can't play defense too. I mean, they probably could if they tried, but you've got to build around them. So
I think if they're going to win a tournament, it's going to be on Thibaut Courtois' back.
yeah,
He is one of the best in the world. He had another
yeah.
good for Real. One
So
of the players.
I would hesitantly put Kevin De Bruyne in that conversation. Kylian Mbappe, yes, he's in that conversation because he's won a World Cup now. Yes, he has a more composed team around him than De Bruyne, and it's not fair to De Bruyne, but that is the way it is. Um, people are going to start to surpass Messi and
Well, that's what
Ronaldo.
I'm saying. It's been so long since that question was even reasonable to ask.
Yeah, and the thing is, I've always had an issue with putting guys like Messi and Ronaldo at the top. Like, yes, they are two of the best players in the world. They're two of the best.
But it
Two
was
of two,
for a long time. It was just they were different. They were on a different
yeah.
level.
But the issue is, you know, again, they did wonders for Barcelona and for Real. But may he rest in peace. Diego Maradona put Argentina on his back and led Argentina to a World Cup.
Yeah.
Cristiano Ronaldo really didn't do much for
He's not a very good World Cup player. Great in the Euros, kills it in the
yes,
Euros, but
the thing
not a
is
great World Cup player.
for their club, they did wonders for their club, and there's no denying that. But for country, I mean,
Yeah,
it's hard for me to it's hard for me to put these guys in the best of all time, because for soccer, it's one of those sports where you have to compete for club and for country. And the people that have done it, Ronaldinho, Ricardo Kaká, the Brazilians have done it. You know, Zidane, Zinedine Zidane did it, I guess you could say. David
Mhm.
Beckham, you know, we'll talk about that. David Beckham, he was 17 years old and he got death threatened because he got red carded out of a World Cup. And then in when they were playing Greece in a World Cup qualifier, he has that. That's one of my favorite goals ever of all time,
Yeah.
because he comes out years later talking about that very free kick. And they said, you know, what happens if you don't make that free kick in 2002? I probably would have gotten shot. I probably would have died. And I don't see Messi and Ronaldo putting their countries on their backs like David Beckham and
You don't think Ronaldo put Portugal on his back in Euro 2016?
I mean, yeah,
Well,
I guess you could. Yeah, I
even
guess you
well,
could.
I mean, even like he got hurt in the final and he was, on the sideline, you know,
I mean, he was
whatever.
coaching.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah. I mean, and even just leading up to that, he was.
mean,
I don't know.
2016 was arguably his best year ever for Portugal. I guess you could have.
I'm just making the argument that in that tournament he did put. Well, I mean, I think that Portugal's been on his back since he came in,
Portugal's
but
well, okay.
they were
I'll
actually successful in 2016. So you got to give him credit if they're on his.
yeah, Portugal. I'll give you this argument, or I'll give you this opinion. Portugal's been relevant and been successful because of Ronaldo, but they never elevated to that next step. My point is, you know, Diego Maradona elevated them to that next step. But to your point, yes, in that sense, he did put Portugal on his back. But again, you know, sports are an industry where you have to win at the biggest levels to be considered great. And that's the
So
way
you
it is.
don't think the Euros is enough? Well, like I think Messi. I'm sure Messi's won Copa Americas before. Actually, no, I don't think he has. But like, if he won a Copa America,
The Euros are a major tournament, but nobody remembers Euros. People remember the World Cup.
I think it's a bit hyperbolic to say no one remembers Euros, but no, I agree with. But that's your sentiment. I
I
mean, I
mean,
can't disagree with. I can't say that you're wrong. I just might not inherently agree with you on that one.
that's fair. That's fair.
Especially because only so many people can win the World Cup.
It's why it's one of my favorite tournaments in the world, because it's 32 teams every 4 years and anybody can win it at any
I mean,
point.
especially like I specifically think of it like 2014. Cristiano shouldn't have even been playing in the World Cup, and he did a lot of long-term damage to his knee by playing in that World Cup. So but if it was in another year where he was totally healthy, maybe Portugal does win. So
I mean,
but I
if
understand
the
you.
World Cup was playing in 2016, I think Portugal wins, no questions asked, because that was arguably one of Cristiano Ronaldo's best years for country, for Portugal. Portugal was clicking on all cylinders, and to your point, yes, it's because of Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. So
and
that's why I understand your argument about them needing to win the big one, but given the fact you only realistically get 2 to 3 cracks of it while you're in your prime, I have a hard time, you know, saying that someone's not top tier because they haven't done that. But that's my
I'm
opinion. I also understand what you're saying is if you want to be the best, you have to have a World Cup in your cabinet.
yeah, because
That's just
and
that's just the way it is.
I also come from, I'm gonna be 30 myself this summer. Ronaldo to me is Brazilian Ronaldo. So when Cristiano Ronaldo was coming along, people were like, "Oh, did you see what Ronaldo did?" Well, which one? Because there's two of them. Oh, well, the Ronaldo, like which one? And that was when Cristiano Ronaldo was coming of age. But that's my opinion. I see your point. Again, you can't you can't take away what they did at the club level. They are two of the best of all time to ever play the
Yeah.
game.
Well, I'm just even
But
thinking of like, what if you had someone from like, well, okay, so like the example of like a Mo Salah. Egypt is never. It does not matter how good Mo Salah is. Egypt will never win the World Cup.
yeah,
Or even who's the even better example? Zinedine, if it was based on both, now there's like this find this a whole other fascinating thing of dual nationals and stuff like I
like the
assume you.
Boateng brothers.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. The Boateng brothers. Yep. So
One chose to play for Africa, one chose to play for Germany.
yeah, and it's fine. But for the example of Zinedine Zidane was born in Algeria. He technically should have been playing for the Algerian national team. Now, do you think Algeria even qualify? Even if Zidane's on the team, you think they even qualify? So
Probably not, because I don't think they would have known how to build around Zinedine Zidane.
but I still would consider Zidane.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
that
one of the
might have yeah, that would have lessened his legacy without all the France stuff. Totally agreed. All the stuff he did with France was huge, but just give the player he was, I would still rank him as one of the best.
he's
And
he
I couldn't hold his country of origin against him like that. But I also
in
understand.
my opinion, Zidane is the best
Yeah,
one of the best
agreed.
free kick takers ever.
I think he's one of, if not the best player of all time, personally. Like if I think of like what I think of is soccer at its purest, I think he has to be
Up there, yeah.
one of, if not the best. Yeah, and also given the argument that he won everything there was. He went to Juventus. He won everything there. He won both the Euros and the World Cup for France. He won a ton at Real Madrid. He's a winner. And then talk about bang for you buck on coaching. And I'm not even.
He went on what, like a
He's got some
45
coaching
game winning
issues.
streak or a not defeated streak?
He's got. He's not. I don't think he's no pep. He's no tactical whatever. But his man management skills were obviously incredible.
Right.
And just like how do you argue with someone who wins 3 Champions Leagues in a row, and then it's just like mic drop?
Yeah. I keep forgetting for as much as Zizou did, I keep forgetting he was on the '98 World Cup team. I keep forgetting that.
Well, that was speaking of OG Ronaldo. That was when he had that seizure the night before the game, and they kind of rocked their stuff in that '98 final. So yeah, OG Ronaldo. What a character he was. I mean,
I know.
Heck, he played on both sides of the Classico. He played on both sides of the Milan Derby.
Correct.
There was that haircut in '02. Then he got fat.
Then he got caught hooking up with transvestites in the red light district in Brazil.
Yup, doing that.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You talk about how Ronaldo's been on both sides of the El Clasico, both sides of this, both sides of that. He was never hated for it.
No, that's interesting.
Andrea Pirlo played for all 3 major Italian teams in Serie A and was never hated.
He played for Inter.
Inter, Juve, and AC.
I knew he played. Yeah, I didn't realize he played for Inter.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Zlatan did too.
Yeah. So, who do you think? I mean, it's hard because I don't know the question I want to ask, but like, who do you think?
You also see like Luis Figo when he made the switch. Well, I think it's different. Like if you go directly from one to the other, like he didn't go directly from Barca to Real or directly from Inter to AC Milan. So I think, but like when Luis Figo signed from Barcelona to Real Madrid, they were throwing pig heads out into the field.
I remember when Pirlo was signed, and it was Pirlo this is with AC Milan. It was Pirlo, Dino, Beckham, and
a really old Clarence Seedorf was still hanging around.
Yeah, that and
Zlatan, that was when they had young Robinho too.
Yeah, but it was Pirlo, Dino, Beckham, and Zlatan, and they were all standing over a ball. And the caption on the picture read, "Well, the goalie may as well just go home."
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, so to go back to the original question, Kylian is definitely up there. Neymar would be up there if he didn't have those selfish. If he didn't have those selfish years, I do think that Neymar has matured a lot. But if he didn't have that gap, he would be up there.
If you want to see why Neymar is not on that tier, watch the first leg against Man City. In the first half, he was the best that I've ever. He was everything that he can and should be in the first half. So good, and then the second half just gave up, didn't care anymore. Terrible, and that game is the perfect epitome of why Neymar will never be at that tier.
Holland is a wunderkind right now, but I need to like he's had 2 great years. So I want to see if
Yeah,
he
yeah,
continues.
yeah. See
I
if
want
he
to see if he continues, or is he a flash in the pan, or is he for real? Because that's
fair
the same
enough.
conversation we had with Cristiano and with Lionel Messi was, are these guys flashes in the pan, or are they for real?
Well, I think he's
And
playing with Timo Werner right now. He's struggling.
yeah, yeah. So I want to see if he's for real. I think he is, but I gotta see how that happens.
Yeah, well, I just said him because those are the names. Those are like he and Mbappe are kind of like positioned as the two new like Ballon d'Or rivals. But I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be as binary. There's too many good players for it to be.
There will never be another binary era of just Messi versus Ronaldo. I think that the game has evolved past that, and the Ballon d'Or is any player any day. To be honest with you,
Yeah, I mean, because there's so many exciting young players. I mean, you got Phil Foden, you got Mbappe. Yeah, there's a lot of exciting.
if Kevin De Bruyne is healthy, he's up there.
Yeah, and he's still got another 4 or 5 years of prime, probably. Speaking of that, I gotta renew mine. Just kidding. Actually, we would like to remind people that Amazon is terrible. But anyway, now another topic I wanted to discuss with you, and I know you're much more knowledgeable about the women's team than I am, so I'm hoping that you can enlighten me on some stuff. The discussion, the equal pay discussion, and just the general equality question between men and women's soccer, specifically in the context of men's teams versus women's team. Uh, Sound off. Give me a sound bite. Go Sarah
So
Spain on me.
okay, so I've never understood why there's been an equality debate in the soccer game, because what people tend to forget is that soccer is one of the few sports out there that right down the middle it's played the same regardless of the gender, same amount of players, same time frame, same rules for fouls and cards. Goals still count. There's no point differential there. They still go off +3 goal differential, all of that stuff. It's the same. They're playing the
Hmm.
same game.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why the pay is different because of gender. I've never understood that. I never have. People just because, oh well, it's hard to it takes more skill to play in the men's game, but you're playing the same game on the women's side. I don't. That's something
No,
that
I
I've
don't.
never.
I'll okay, so I'll give you the counterpoint, which I don't necessarily agree with, but the counterpoint is that just it. I mean, it has nothing to do with the actual game. The counterpoint is just the economics of it. That you know,
Yeah,
the men's team can come dead last in their World Cup, and they get more money than the women would get from winning it.
yeah,
So
and
in
that's a
that,
FIFA issue.
yes, no, I agree with you. I don't think I'm not saying that that's right, and I don't necessarily think that we should use that as an excuse to not pay our.
Correct.
I mean, because then we take that and we use it as an excuse not to pay equally. Then it just
Yeah,
becomes like a cycle of they're not going to pay more because we don't pay more. So that circular logic is terrible. But that
yeah.
is counter is because the men, they're not looking at them as players. They're looking at them as units. As we do in American society, everyone is viewed as a unit of economic output because that's the disgusting society we live in. But
Yeah.
as pieces of economic output, the men's players are more economic efficient, and by American capitalist thought process, they therefore deserve to be paid for more. Now,
So for the listeners that may not understand, FIFA does not play individual teams or players. FIFA gives a lump sum of money to countries' soccer federations.
yeah, the
From
federation,
there,
yes.
from there, the federation divvies out the money between both sides. If you have a country that has,
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
yeah, so the way it was explained to me, FIFA gives money to the federation, and it's the federation's responsibility to divvy it out between the men and the women if there are two sides of a country's
But
team.
the economic argument is the men, quote unquote, bring in more money. The reasons for
And
that are external and, in my opinion, immoral. But
yes,
that's
and
the
in
yeah, that's the economic state of it. So that's the argument. I don't agree with it either.
so in the United States, the women have argued, and this is the way it was broken down to me. The women were paid more. The reason they filed, we'll get to the filing of the equal pay lawsuit, but the reason for the anger behind it is that, you know, the women earned $100 for playing and winning 9 games. The
Mm-hmm.
men earned $90 for playing and winning 3 games. Were the women paid more? Yes, but they played more and won more. So when you break it down to a per dollar, you know, or like a per game per dollar, like when you break it
Yeah, no,
down,
I've never really thought
the
of it.
men were making more per game than the women were. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The women, the United States women's
Makes sense.
national team. There were a few players. It was led by, I believe, it was led by Megan Rapinoe, Kristen Press, Becky Sauerbrunn, and Sam Mewis, I believe, were the forefront of this
Yeah, definitely.
lawsuit. But they filed on March 8th, 2019. 4 months, about roughly 4 months before the World Cup, they filed this lawsuit because July 11th was their first game against Thailand. And at the time, I think it's an anecdote worth knowing that Carlos Cordero was the president of the federation at this time. He is no longer the president of the federation,
Mm-hmm.
but he was the time. Around the World Cup time, he had stated, or there was a statement on behalf of him or the federation, I don't know. The statement came out that the women were paid 34.1 million in salary and game bonuses as compared to the 26.4 million that the men had earned during the same time period. Now, I argue the in-game bonuses because the women were playing in a tournament that the men did not qualify for.
Yeah, so the you just to clarify, so the men played in like friendlies and stuff, and the women played in a tournament.
Yes,
Okay,
like the women,
just to clarify.
yes. So the men's World Cup was in 2018. The women's World Cup was in 2019. The men missed out on the 2018 World Cup. The women played in, dominated, and won the 2019 World Cup, and it was their second of back-to-back World Cup wins. And that's
I
where I
think that's
argue
another point worth considering that our women's team is like dominant and has is and will continue to be one of the best in the world.
the women have never been ranked less than like 3 in the world. I think it was like for a short period of time they were ranked number 3. The men are ranked number 20th right now, which is the highest they've ever been ranked ever, in my opinion.
But I honestly think that is kind of not shouldn't be factored into the pay equation. Now,
No, that's fair
even if the
because
women weren't as good, I don't think, I don't. Well, I don't know. Is it fair to pay them more for being better?
yes, because they I mean the women are better at the women
So I'm
are
just
the
saying. So, like, what if you take the men? So let's say we take the men completely out of the equation. So then you would say like a first-ranked women's national team should get paid more than like if they were ranked 20.
yes.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean
I just want
the
to. I
thing
know. I'm
is
just clarifying.
in in athletics, production is what pays the bills. You
Sure.
know, they are ranked higher, they win constantly, they dominate every single tournament that they're ever a part of, you know. And the thing is, you can't have, when it comes to athletics, again, production does pay the bills. You can't, you can talk about the markets and the revenue and the financial, you know, incentives all you want, but at the end of the day, you're paying these players to win, and the women win more. So why wouldn't you make sure that on a salary per game basis, they're paid more than the men? That's my argument.
Okay. Well, I think I'm more in the camp of they should be paid equally, or not like necessarily equally. Kind of what you were saying, not necessarily equal in dollar amounts, but I think they should be compensated in an equal way given like the work that you would agree that in terms of like the work they're doing now, the women's team are like crushing everyone. But let's say hypothetically we lived in a world where our women, like all the other women's teams, were like way better or whatever. So, but like the actual work they're putting in, the time, the effort, the sweat, blood, tears, is the same on both sides, men or
Yeah,
women. So that's
yeah,
why the results are kind of, um, results are to a certain extent external. And no matter how good we are, if the rest of the world's terrible, then yeah, we're the best. If the rest of the world's great, then we're the worst. I don't think so. I think that pay should be. That's why I think pay should be as equal as it can be for men and women, but also given like all the other important factors, like who played more games. Like you said, the women get paid amount more, but they put in 3 times as amount. Yeah, that doesn't make
Yeah,
sense.
they're playing more games than the men
I
are.
think they
So
should be compensated equally for the amount of output they put out, and I don't measure output as success. I measure output as just doing it, and the success is kind of like, to a certain extent, not, it's sports, so to a certain extent success is up to whatever. But as long if they're in there putting it all in, then they should be paid equally, men or women, doesn't matter. um Another thing outside the pay thing, which I think is even less, like, I don't even see a counter argument for it. At least for the other one, I see some counter arguments, like the playing on turf, and just like
well, yeah, so
substandard, like
that was
anything
that
like
was
that
one of the
is
bigger
complete bullshit.
that was a part of the big arguments that they were making. Like they wanted to be compensated. I think it was like they were looking for about 65, 66 million in back pay because they wanted to be compensated for the subpar facilities that they had. There was an argument about charter flights, but the one of the lead counsels for the women's national team said they haven't chartered a flight for as long as I've been here, except for maybe when they came back from the World Cup, and that's because they won it. You know,
Yeah, exactly. Now that, like, I don't think there's any. If I don't agree with the argument that you should pay economic output, but I can at least understand where that would be a somewhat viable opinion. I don't see any viable opinion that argues that women should be playing on turf or playing, anything. They should be playing on the creme de la creme, and I think anything outside of that is an absolute disgrace.
yes, and you know, for a team that has always been under fire just because they are women, they've one of my favorite sayings is pressure can either burst pipes or create diamonds. When the pressure has been the highest, they have been the diamonds that shine the brightest. On the biggest stages they are winning, on the biggest stages they are dominating, whereas like we've talked about, the men are struggling to qualify, they're struggling to make that
Sure.
state. The
But
women
the argument could be made that that's more of a reflection on, the rest of the world. One of the reasons why our women's team is the best is that we take it, you know, people can and will probably be right in arguing we don't take it as serious as the men's team we should be, but like it's way closer. Like
well the
that's
issue
another, that is a factor that plays into, to be fair.
so the argument that I see in this equal pay, and I for the listeners at home I put argument in
Well, like I
quotation.
said before, I don't think that should impact the pay, but it's
Well, when
just.
it comes to equal pay and on a salary basis, paying the women as equal to the men, um, the argument that I see is, oh well, the women lost to that U15 team that one time, that boys U15 team, whatever that
Oh
that
yeah, I
BA,
don't think. Yeah, I
whatever
don't.
that bullshit game was in Texas that nobody fucking remembers because it didn't mean anything. My question to that has always been, okay, but when was the last time the men won a meaningful game? When was the men have lost out on the last two major tournaments? 2016 was a fluke for the women because they got beat in the round of 16 in the Olympics in penalties by Sweden, and they proved that in 2019 when they won the World Cup again. And they're trust me, they got a chip on their shoulder for the Olympic team, or for the Olympics coming up in
Yeah, I don't
2020.
think anyone's arguing that the women's national team is very strong. I don't think
Yeah,
anyone's making that argument.
it's for me, it's frustrating because again, soccer is one of those sports where it's played right down the middle, regardless of gender. Rules, goals, everything
Yeah,
counts
it
the
does.
same.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know. That's like not even. I don't know. It's like not even
And
like
and
the
and
point.
so it was just before the She Believes Cup final, that the federation had filed. This was when um, ongoing battle. This was in the midst of the ongoing battle. The Federation had filed a statement that said that they aren't going to pay the women equally because it, it takes more skill to be a male player in the men's game versus being a women's player in the women's game. And to that, I say, no matter what you are at the professional level, it's hard to win a game at the professional level, regardless if you're a man or a woman.
Well, I think that's, I mean, kind of what I was saying before about output. They're putting out the same output in terms of like what they're producing. Their output is their effort. Yeah, in
Correct.
terms of that, their output is not their success. Their output is their effort, in my opinion. Because, like I said, the success is relative based to other things. Um, for them to say that it takes more skill, I don't think skill should even matter. To be completely honest, now you're arguing that the women should be paid more because they're more skillful. That's a reasonable and fine opinion.
It's I would say they're more skillful, but
Their
again,
success has been a result of their being more skillful. Is your
I think that they should be paid more because they win more. That's a very generic argument, but as somebody who works in athletics and sees that it's, I trust me, athletics is a world of what have you done for me lately?
Yeah. Well,
You
okay.
know,
Well, okay. Let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this: if the men's team was the number one team and the women's team was 30th in the world, would it be fair to pay the women less?
I would say yes, because then the men are,
Okay. Well,
the
just
thing
just
is,
making sure you're consistent.
yeah,
Fair enough.
I try to be consistent and fair. Look, man,
No, I'm just making sure that like we get the whole picture of
I'm just
of the
trying to I'm just
philosophy.
trying to formulate my thoughts over here.
Yeah, you're
You
fine.
know, regardless of whether you're man, woman, hermaphrodite, black, blue, red, purple, you know, pay should be based on, production, effort,
Hmm.
output, whatever, production is what pays the bills. That's how I roll, and that's my personal opinion. So if the shoe were on the other foot and the men's team were,
Yeah.
the number one team in the world, and they were, the defending reigning World Cup champions, yes, pay them more. But the thing is, if the shoe were on the other foot and it were the men, it wouldn't be a question. But because
No, no,
it's
that's a very accurate and true point.
and so it's because they're women, and it's because, you know,
And that's wrong.
It was Julie Foudy who said, for the longest time, it was, you should just have a place. You should be happy that you have a place to play. Again, I try to be a very consistent person. I don't care if you're a man or a woman, if you're white, black, blue, purple,
Yeah, no,
red,
I
green.
agree with you. I
If
think
you,
I think the only difference between our opinions is how we're defining production.
yeah,
I define
and that's
production as
fair.
a more flat rate, and you defining it more based on how successful they are.
Yes,
And
I have
I
been
think
defining it
those
based
are the
on.
two fair arguments. I think the argument that U.S. soccer is making is this skill. Yes, if the men's team played the women's team, I'm sure the men's team would win. Good for you. That's not the point.
I mean, if they played, they probably would. But would you really put Christian Pulisic up against Julie Ertz? Because I think Julie Ertz would take his ass
We're gonna have to disagree on that one.
out. That's fine. That's 100% fine. I
But
mean,
I wanted to actually switch gears just a touch here from present to kind of maybe future. Now, MLS has hit 25 years and it's pretty stable. The women's game had a couple false starts, but it looks like the NWSL is finally going to provide a stable American league for the women. Now, my
yes.
question would be looking towards like development of NWSL. Do you think it would be more beneficial for them to kind of, I don't want to necessarily say partner, but let's say like okay, compared to like how it is in the EPL where you have Chelsea men, Chelsea women, Man U men, Man U women, City men, where the clubs are the same for men and women versus in America where yeah, they're not. That's not the case. Do you think it would be more beneficial, or do you think it would be more detrimental for the clubs to be more like the English model, where the same club owns the men and women? I think it would provide more basic infrastructure, but at the same time, it would also lead to a lot of the issues where you're seeing in the U.S. Soccer Federation. So, what's your take on that?
I think it would be beneficial if they worked together. I don't think it would be beneficial to have the same owner own the same team.
What
Because
if it was just
I'll
maybe just like a couple, like some of them were and some of them weren't?
I mean, because let's.
I mean,
I guess I would. I get.
doesn't Orlando's women's team like in men team, aren't they the same? Am I incorrect on that one?
City and
Orlando,
Pride.
yeah, but
I
they like
mean,
wear the same uniforms and everything,
yeah, they wear the same uniforms and stuff. They have the same colors. I don't
but
know
they're
if they
not owned
train.
by the same people.
I don't believe so. I
Okay.
mean, we could take. I believe Man United is owned by the same people, correct?
Like the men, well, like all the men's and women's teams for like in Europe, yeah, it's like it's all coming from one thing. Do you
So
think that would be better? Or then do
I
you
mean,
think
I would.
the
So
women
let's
become a
let's.
subdivision of the men, which is not what it should be. It should be two equal pieces.
I think it would become a subdivision under an umbrella because, like, so let me use this as an example. M- Manchester United and City, they are both owned under the same person. They have the same training facilities. They have the same whatever. But let's take United for example. Man United, Red Devils. They are a one of the richest and most well known franchises in all
Brands,
of
yeah.
sports. But that's just the men. The women have been struggling for years, and so my fear
You
is that
think that hurts their women's team?
yes, because I think they're so focused on the men's team that the women have kind of been forgotten about. They just Men United just 2 years, like within the last year or so, brought in Kristen Press and Tobin Heath, and they're still kind of on this roller coaster. I want to see them produce. I want to see I believe the women's version of the EPL is the FAWSL. I believe it is.
Yeah, I know there's the Super League. I know they call it the Super League.
Yeah, I just I don't I think it bodes well in theory, but it's not like the women don't have as much attention as the men do, and that's not right. But then you see Man City women where they have the same facility and they have the same, attention. And, somebody like a Rose Lavelle who got hurt, she can just waddle over to their training facility and get the same attention that Kevin De Bruyne was getting.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, no, exactly, and that would be
so
the argument I would make too, because
yeah, so
inherently it would cost more to build two facilities than one.
yeah, and so I, do I hate to see Rose Lavelle get hurt? Of course I do, but she got the same treatment and the same attention that Kevin De Bruyne was getting. Now, United, they're very top heavy, so City is very. I feel like City is very, you know, a well-oiled machine, and they pay attention to both squads. United, however, is very top heavy, so
Well,
it's
in
just
general, City is very into their foundation. Like when Sheik, I don't want to miss Sheik. I'm just gonna call him Sheik M because I don't want to mispronounce his name. Like, oh yeah, of course they put a ton of money into the first team, but the academy, the women's team, and then also their partnerships with clubs around the world, be it NYCFC.
yeah.
They have a sibling club in Australia as well. So they, like you said, yeah, Man City specifically really focuses on their foundations, facilities, all that kind of stuff, and that would be good for. So, okay, let me ask you like this: assuming implementation is correct. Now, I think we're talking about issues in implementation. Assuming all the implementation issues were cleared up, do you think it would be better for, uh, well, one of three things? Do you think it would be better if MLS and NWSL teams were 100% separate? Do you think it'd be better if there was a mix, or do you think it would be better if it was the English model where it's 100% paired?
I I would like to
Assuming
see
implementation is correct.
assuming implementation is correct, I would like to see them operate like the EPL slash FAWSL because you see how well Man City operates. But my fear is that it would be the way Man United operates, where
Or the
it's
U.S. Soccer Federation, more specifically.
yes, there is top heavy and they focus solely on the men's side that they forget that the women's side exists. So for right now, the fact that they're separate is fine. It's working well. But if the implementation is correct, then yes, let's go with the EPL FAWSL. But not everybody can be a Man City. Not everybody can be.
Yeah.
You know who else operates just as well as Man City is PSG. PSG's women's team, Chelsea's women's team. They Chelsea, Man City, and PSG do it right, but not everybody can do that. So if I could be guaranteed that it would operate
If
like
there was
those.
some kind of stipulations or policy in place that there couldn't be, you're never going to be perfectly equal in any instance. Sometimes the women, but like, yeah. So you would think, well, especially and then economically, it makes so much. If you have two, let's just say you have two clubs in Charlotte, a men's club and a women's club. It costs not just the city of Charlotte and its taxpayers, because stadiums come out of that whole separate issue, but for
Yeah,
them to have two okay facilities versus one world class facility.
yeah. I would like to see like, one world class facility, but then you're just like, so rather than putting the money into two okay facilities, put the money into one world class facility where you have world class groundskeepers, world class training
Yeah,
staff,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
a world class facilities management.
And
Like,
it'll end up being cheaper than having two.
yeah, and then you
Yeah,
just divide and conquer where it's like, okay, the women train on day A and the men train on day C. We have games on,
sure. So
E and
economically,
F.
it,
There's
it
like
would make
a
more
day,
sense.
in between each event so that the facilities management can, make sure that everybody's getting the same fair amount of
Hmm.
pristine field and lights and sound system and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Well, I also think it would be specifically in America the way youth soccer is. I think it would be a huge benefit in that area. On the boys' side, academies and high level clubs are a lot more
Yeah, and
ubiquitous.
they've been going
I
on for
mean, those
years.
women's academies are for girls are basically very difficult to non-existent. So you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and a lot of the academies come from the MLS clubs. So to have a girl crew juniors or a girl Galaxy whatever juniors, I think would then provide more skilled youth females to participate in the academy system, and that they've been kind of shut out of because they come from the MLS clubs in most instances.
So let me ask you this: we're talking about the separate to possibly combining the same operational system. One thing I learned when I was researching the equal pay lawsuit that the women's national team filed, I discovered that the men's and women's teams operate with separate bargaining agreements and pay structures. Now, does that
Mhm.
fall on the federation or does that fall on like the front office? Who determines how they bargain and how their pay is structured?
Is there a union involved in that? I would think
I
there's
am
some
not.
kind of union players. You would think there's some. I mean, I think there's a players union, U.S. players union. I know there's an.
I
Well, I know there's an MLS one, but maybe I don't know. I would think
I'm
there's.
not.
If
I'm
not, I
not
would think
exactly
there would be
sure.
there either is or should be a players union. I would think
Yeah,
that seems
I'm.
reasonable, but I don't
I'm
know
not
what that
sure on
is.
that. You have a better economic and business brain than I do, so
Yeah,
that's why
but anyway, yeah, I don't. But anyway,
I mean, I saw my eyes were open to how well of an oiled machine Man City was when Rose and Sam and Abby were playing for them. Because I'm like, oh wait, they train at the same facility, and then I saw like their indoor facility. And it's huge,
well, you
man.
started to see some of their academy products. I mean, I'm not as familiar on the women's side, but on the men's side,
From
like Phil
from a whole
Foden,
standpoint, God,
and all these players who they've been, what Sheik bought it in like 2010, so it's been about 10 years. So anyone turning 18, they were U8s. Um, you're starting to see Man City didn't used to have academy players that play. If they came from the academy, they were garbage. But now they're pumping out world class players because they have world class, and that's what we want to see in America. The better the facilities, the better you can train kids to get better, and the better you train kids, the better your national team is. And thankfully, our women's team is already so far ahead. But like you said, Willie, I think England's kind of catch up to us real quick. China's going to catch up. The countries that take women's soccer seriously, they can and will catch up and pass us if we don't take it seriously. And I think
I think
that
England and Canada are
there's definitely issues with the MLS to NWSL merging if the implementation isn't done correctly. But I
and
think
I fear that the implementation wouldn't be
I,
worked out.
I I think it's reasonable to assume that it wouldn't be at this point, and that's
Yeah,
separate. That's a whole fucked up thing. But I think on the theoretical level, if we're looking at the strength of soccer in the U.S. and then just basic equal and fairness of opportunity, I think it would make a lot of sense for there to be maybe not 100%. I think a little bit of independence, to allow, maybe some markets want a women's team and not a men's team, and vice versa. So we're not, we still have to play the markets to a little bit, but I think generally, like your LAFCs and your LA Galaxies and your Columbus Crews, I think it would make the most sense to just have it like the English system, where they can combine
Two
they
teams
can
under the same
combine
umbrella.
they can combine resources to make the facilities twice as good instead of dividing.
Yeah.
It makes sense on an economic level. It makes sense on a fairness level. It makes sense on a soccer U.S. soccer strategic level. It's a question of implementation, which unfortunately a lot of things do end up being.
Yeah.
Um,
I just it's a great in theory, but I fear that it wouldn't be executed
yeah.
in a
Well, I'm
fair.
hoping that the other thing is, like I said, MLS seems to have caught its stability, and I don't know, maybe how old is NWSL? It's not like super, super old. And, there's been a couple attempts at women's leagues that didn't pan out. Probably a lot of them because of execution issues, not because of a lack of interest. But,
It's so the
we don't
NWSL
want
is
to get in a
only
situation where we don't have a national league because
yeah
of
the
economic issues.
yeah the NWSL is only 8 years old. It started in 2012. So I mean, women's sports in America have always struggled to get started and stay established, just
Well,
based on pure
teaming
based on
teaming up
pure.
with yeah, but teaming up. I think teaming up with men's team could hypothetically, once again, assuming execution is correct, that would, it would help that a lot.
Yeah, I would like to see the MLS kind of reach out and say, all right, we're going to work together on this
Well,
and
hell,
go forward.
let me go a little crazier here. I know. I mean, you also we had for those listening, we had another Yinzer, Seth Scheidmantel, on in episode 9, and we talked all about Yinzer culture. But you're a Buccos fan. What if MLB teams started pairing with like a national softball league?
That would require them to spend money, and they don't like doing that.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. So then I think the difference there is that there's a more well, actually,
I
no. I
will say
might disagree with you. I think there is I think there would be a market there for.
there
There
would
is
be
a
a
market
market because
for
softball is one of the for as somebody who's worked softball is such a fun sport to watch. It's such a fun sport to cover. It's to
but I don't
me
know if it has enough interest at this moment to be self-sustaining. But if
it does at the collegiate level.
I'm
However,
talking at the pro level,
at the pro level, I think
they
that
need
there
financial support, and if MLB could give them that financial support to get them going for like 5 to 10 years, then we could have a national softball league. Which there's no reason that we don't have one. That's
exactly, and
ridiculous.
I think that based on the interest level that there is at the collegiate level, and you saw this with the Women's College World Series within the last couple of years, I think based on the interest at that level, that it's worth entertaining for like 5 to 10 years. Say, hey, here you've got 10 years to get this going. We'll come back in 10 years and see if it's sustainable. So it's at least generated enough interest and enough production to say, all right, it's worth taking a shot.
But it's
So
hard to start a league on its own if if they kind of have the crutch and the support and all the things
yeah,
that would come with the support of being with the MLB, not just the financials, but also, like you said, the facilities, and then I hate to say it because it's bullshit, but even the like legitimacy. There seems to be an issue where a lot. I think partially, obviously partially due to sexism, but then also partially due to we've had a lot of women's league that started and didn't make it very far. There's a
yeah,
lot of there's a natural skepticism to the women's league. It is unfair, but also based on history. So and that's not what we want. We don't want leagues starting, shutting, starting, shutting. That's not good for anyone. We want strong, stable leagues that continue to grow. And I think that pairing with existing, you know, at this point, bigger money organizations, like you said, that will require MLB teams or MLS teams to spend money, and a lot of them aren't interested in doing that. Just look at the New England Revolution continuing to play on the Patriots Stadium. The
yeah.
Kraft family can go suck a fat one.
Because the thing is, when it comes to professional athletics, I say this when I talk to people about the Pirates. I say this when I talk to people about anything. when you get into ownership of professional athletics to start, you aren't getting in to make money. The money will come eventually. The business 101 cliche lesson, you spend money to make money, comes into play with owning a professional athletics team. You spend the money and the money will come back to you. Let's use baseball for an example. When you get into the playoffs, when you get into the World Series, though the major networks pay the local TV stations money for those rights. Those rights are owned by the organization.
Hmm.
So the money is just an ever spinning wheel. So you make that money back when you make like the playoffs and you win and whatnot, but you have to spend the money to
Yeah.
get there. And organizations like the
Yankees
Pittsburgh
wanted to
Pirates
put the
just do
money in to
extra.
have a good softball team and help a softball league grow, it would be profitable eventually. But
Exactly, and I
they would
would I
rather
would
throw
like to see
another
a
100 million at
professional
some
football thing.
dude who throws a ball. But this is all aside from the issue that baseball and softball are garbage, barely sports compared to soccer. You might
I
disagree with me
just
on that one, but
and
I think
and
they're
and but
terribly boring.
I like baseball. I don't mind watching it. I will also address this. I am like half in, half out as a Pirates fan. I like the sport of baseball. I watch the sport of baseball, but I will not support the Pirates until the ownership is out. The Nutting family is the worst ownership that exists right now in any professional sporting league,
Whoa,
and
whoa,
that
whoa, 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 whoa! There's a lot of Man United fans that would strongly disagree with you on that one.
I mean, when the Nutting family travels to spring training, they fly coach.
Okay, but did they try to start a European Super League?
Nutting family doesn't even know like okay, the Nutting family
The
they own
Glazers literally tried to take high level football away from the rest of the world. That's pretty terrible.
that is, but the Nutting family owns Seven Springs, so owning a sports team is not within their realm of priority.
No, well, yeah, that's a whole nother. That's
When so I
it's
found when I
like
work, I'm gonna leak something because I used to work for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I worked as game day security at PNC Park. When there's 81 home games in a regular year.
another
The
reason why
Nuttings
baseball
live
is
in
boring.
Wheeling, West Virginia. They would drive to every game in Pittsburgh from Wheeling, West Virginia. I had the privilege of working what's called the gold lot, the VIP lot at PNC Park. I had the unfortunate privilege of parking the Nutting family one night. And this was about 5 years ago before I moved to Dover.
Hmm.
Bob Nutting rolled up in a beat up old ass GMC van. There were dents all on this motherfucker. And he just wouldn't. The reason it wasn't fixed is because that required him to spend money. The Nutting family profits about 45 to $50 million a year. Why the fuck do you own a sports team if you're profiting 50 million a year? What are you spending that money on if you're not spending it on yourself? I would be like less angry if they
Sports
were
teams are
spending
not supposed to be like revenue neutral.
yeah, but they're not. They profit 50 million a year.
Hmm. Yeah, well, you said the same thing about the Glazers. To be fair, I mean, I'll have to defer to you because I don't know anything about the Nuttings other than kind of funny last name. Um, but the Glazers suck some big old dong. And honestly, I'm a Real Madrid fan, but Florentino Perez sucks. So I
The
hate him.
thing, the thing is, at least Man U and Real are competitive. They put up competitive products on the field.
Well, with Man U, you could argue.
I mean, yeah, okay, that's fine. You can argue that, but the Pirates are in the bottom half of we're fifth in the National League Central out of 5 teams in our division. Right now, we are 20 games under 500. In baseball, that's fucking horrible. Like at one point in time, like just within the last month, we went on a 10-game losing streak.
It would be like if Man United was playing down in the second division.
Yes, exactly. I mean, there are times where I don't understand why the Pirates are allowed to identify as a professional league team. We have a pitcher by the name of Mitch Keller who's supposed to be the savior of the masses, and there were times where he was leaving pitches right over in the middle of the plate and he was getting taken yard. I mean, Yasmani Grandal, Ian Happ, who's a Pittsburgh product, there were countless hitters who were hitting fucking dong shots off of him because he's just leaving them right over the plate. We're not investing in the players on the field. There's a caliber of former Pirates players that could still be playing, but we haven't invested in them.
Baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball.
I love
like,
I personally love
you enjoy not paying attention to the game. The best part about going to the baseball game is not paying attention to the game.
I personally love the sport of baseball, but I can't support it from a Pittsburgh standpoint just because
I was asking myself when the announcement of the European Super League came out,
it ruined soccer. That ruined soccer.
Well, they shoved that shit right back up their ass for now. Yeah. But I was like, if they go through with this, I cannot, in good conscience, be a supporter of Real Madrid or Manchester City. I can't. I couldn't, in good conscience. I'm still pretty pissed off at Perez, but he's just like, it's a one man. He's waging a one man war to create this because he wants more money. Like, I hate him. He's the worst. He's the reason Zidane left twice.
Fun fact: Kaká is the only Real Madrid jersey I'll ever own. I do have I have a Ricardo Kaká jersey.
Yeah. No. I mean, I still support the team, but it's
the only issue I ever had with the Super League was when FIFA came out and said we're going to punish players if they choose to play, and it's like you have to understand that players may not have a choice. Owners make those final decisions, and the players.
Yeah, the players got. And here's the thing: the players, they had no idea this announcement was coming. And I think I'm trying to remember.
They were just as taken as back as anybody because I think
it was Liverpool who played the next day, so they had to. James Milner had to take questions in Jurgen Klopp, and the owners.
Like, we have no idea what the fuck happened.
We're just like these owners are cowards. They're hiding behind their players and managers. That's
and like that's where I was like, all right, that's where I kind of got. I mean, I've been upset with FIFA for a while. But that's where I was just like, dude, if you're not going to back up your players, then why do you exist? Because FIFA was coming out and saying, all right, if you choose to play in the Super League, you can't play for your national team in the next World Cup. And it's just like, okay, FIFA, get your fucking head out of your ass and understand that the owners are the ones who make these decisions. It's the owners.
Well,
and
I don't
even know if the general managers have a say in it because it's the owners that are like, all right, we're trying to do this. And it was like a 12-man operation in somebody's fucking hot tub in a luxury house when they were drinking fucking whiskey and shit, making these fucking decisions because they want to make more money. And it's like the players and the coaches had no idea this was going on. So
they didn't want anything to do with it.
Why are you punishing the people that have nothing to do with this? Punish the fuckers who own these teams. Find a way to punish them.
I think that actually really dovetails perfectly into the last thing I want to touch on, which since our restart from COVID, I mean, the schedule congestion, especially for top-level players, has been ridiculous. And I think now, there's no exact direct link between it, but we just had the Christian Eriksen incident in the Denmark game in which he went into cardiac arrest on the field. And I asked the question, Christian Eriksen's been playing a lot of soccer the last 12 months because of the schedule. What role did that? I mean, we talked about earlier, the rate of injury has been exponential because they're just shoving all these games. They're even playing a World Cup during the winter for money.
Yeah,
the World Cup is in Qatar for money.
Because the thing is, the ever living tale of athletics is got to get these games in. We got to get these games in. We got to get these games in. We got to play. We got to make money. We got to get these games in. We got to meet these stats. We got to get these games in. That's the ever living.
And the players said, "Hey, stop! We're gonna get hurt." And
and I don't know. And people,
and I have to say that it had to have had an impact. It had.
Yeah,
the fact that he played so many matches.
The thing is, the one little tidbit I'd like to add to that is that, Christian Eriksen collapsed, and I'm so happy he's okay. I'm glad
those medics were amazing.
Yes. The one thing I want to add to that is that he was resuscitated back to life on the field. He was dead, but then he was resuscitated back to life. People want to make it a COVID conspiracy that, what was he vaccinated or not? I don't know that whether he was vaccinated or not would play a role.
Cause you to have cardiac arrest. COVID.
Yeah, I don't know if that would play a role, and that's not what I'm going to try to discuss in the next few moments here. who does Christian Eriksen play for at the club level?
Inter just won the
Inter,
Scudetto.
Serie A, Italy has been playing a lot of games lately, and soccer is a difficult game to play. In a normal World Cup year, you have 4 days off in between games. These guys were playing games with like a day or two off max.
Yeah,
Soccer is a
you've
sport
also
that
got the cup competitions as well. The
yeah,
Copa
and
Italia.
so when you're playing for club and country, there are times where you might be playing 4 months straight without really much of a break.
Since
So
COVID, it's basically been 12 months straight for a lot of these players.
yeah, and especially when you're playing for club and country, and unfortunately, when you're playing for a club like Denmark, who doesn't have the resources that say a Germany or a Brazil would, he's not getting the attention. So again, I'm glad he's okay, but I think that this compacted schedule finally took a toll on him, and his body was just like, you have to slow down.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what I'm
And it
theorizing.
and it takes a lot of fitness. You and I know this because we both played soccer for a long period of our life. It takes a lot of fitness to play a 90.
It's a hot summer.
Yeah, because where were they playing in the Euros? Where was the host country?
Well, that game was actually in Copenhagen. They have about 7 or 8 different host cities.
Okay. I mean, so you talk about it being a hot game. I've been watching some of the NWSL games. I've been watching some of the women's national team friendlies. They've been having to take hydration breaks because of how hot it's been. The women's national team was playing in Houston in the summer.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
understand why they scheduled the summer series in Houston in the summer when it's been over 100 degrees. But the men weren't taking hydration breaks. That's not a thing in the men's game. Why isn't it? It should be.
Yeah, absolutely should be. They were. I saw them take a couple hydration breaks during not every game. I think it's based on like it has to hit a certain temperature.
Yeah, there's legality where it has to hit a certain temperature, and even then, it's up to the ref's discretion. But if it hits a certain temperature, then it's like you have to. It's been more enforced in the women's game than it has in the men's game. I will agree with you on that. But I think that there needs to be like a hydration break or a timeout per se if you're going to force these guys to get these games in. If you're going to meet the if you're not going to hold off on the amount of games that they're playing, then you've got to meet these guys in the middle and say, okay, well, you're going to play these games, but you're going to get a timeout or a hydration break
Yeah.
here.
Well, I mean, they did have that for like the first 2-3 months, and then they're like, okay, you're good now.
Or since you have to have 18 to 23 players for these rosters, get rid of the substitution, get rid of the substitution rule and allow people to come in and come out. Get rid of the 3 substitution limit. Make it like, okay, max subs, come in and come out. Like, get rid of that rule. Like, find a way to meet these guys in the middle.
Yeah.
Because I personally think, along with the
We'll
offsides
just
rule,
cut down on the number of games.
yeah, if you're not either cut down on the number of games or give these guys a hydration break or let loose on the substitution rule. Meet these guys halfway. Because honestly, for me in 2021, the 3 sub limit is the dumbest rule next to offsides. Because why are you having 21 to 25 guys on a roster, but you can only have 3 subs per game? That is one of the dumbest rules ever. I don't understand that.
Well, actually, until not like the 80s and 90s, you weren't allowed any tactical substitutions at all.
That's a fair point.
I think I might disagree with you on limited substitutions in like normal context. Given current context, you might have a point on that. I think it just once again shows that player safety is not at the top of the list the way that it should be. Actually, just a day or two ago in the Portugal-Germany game, I don't know if you saw this, Danilo got knocked out by Manuel Neuer.
Yeah.
Straight up knocked out. Like, Manuel Neuer is going to be fighting Logan Paul in a couple weeks, knocked out.
Yeah.
Manuel Neuer would mess Logan Paul up.
That was I didn't watch that fight, and
I don't want to watch any of that nonsense, but I know that Manuel Neuer is a bad man. But anyway, he was unconscious, rolling around on the ground. 5 minutes later, they let him take the pitch again and play. Absolutely.
That just means that they don't care about the concussion protocol.
It's absolutely disgraceful.
Because the thing is, in a actual concussion setting,
you can't even
symptoms and effects don't say like it takes 12 hours for all that stuff to kick in, and it's like, oh well, you're fine to go play in 5 minutes. Like, No, 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 you're not.
Especially like if you watch, I mean, he like was rolling around on the like he was out like bad. It reminded me of, I mean, I don't remember who it was again, but I think similar thing happened to Didier Drogba about 10 years ago, and they had once again I don't remember who that was against, but he got knocked out too, and the fact they let him back on is just absolutely ridiculous.
And I mean, it's not just reduced to soccer. Like the concussion protocol is a joke in any sport because they're just like, oh, eye test, eye test. Okay, you're following along. You're good.
Yeah, yeah, that's absolutely, and that's another thing. I know you did mention him a little bit ago. One of the things I absolutely love about Taylor Twellman is his constant beating of the drum on that, and like
Because he knows
well,
he was the
he's never one to hold his. He always says what he's thinking. He never hold, but especially on stuff like that. Some of the other
because
commentators
he was a
might
man
be
who
a
had to
bit.
walk away from the national team because of the amount
He
of
gets it.
concussions he had, and
He
he was
gets
like,
it.
you know what,
Well, because he
I'm done.
said, he's like, I wish I hadn't lied to my coaches the way I had. I wish I hadn't. Yeah. So then, because like a lot of commentators will try to be very diplomatic about things. They don't want to be
He's not.
openly critical. They're like, well, blah blah blah, and he'll just be like, no, that's a disgrace. That's terrible. And it's very Taylor is refreshing the way that he really speaks his mind and isn't afraid to be extremely critical of things that deserve to be criticized.
Correct. Taylor has his
Commentators out there right now. Ugh.
Taylor has his wild opinions. He has his wild takes, but he backs most, if not all, of what he says up. And I absolutely love him. If we could,
Oh, I definitely
but
don't agree with him on everything, but he at least says it straight up and doesn't just beat around the bush.
I would much rather have him than Alexi Lawless. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's a given. I can only imagine a commentary team of Alexi Lawless and Lyndon Donovan. They spend the entire game talking about themselves.
That's like Alexi Lawless is the soccer version of Mike Milbury. That's just how dumb he is. And I don't know if you heard this, but Alexi Lawless was talking about they had just released like the Soccer Hall of Fame inductees for this year, and Hope Solo was snubbed, and he was like, I'm not talking, field players or goalkeepers or male or female, but Hope Solo's the best American-born player, and I was just like,
what? That's weird.
I was like,
Well, okay,
okay.
I could qualify it as she's the Hope Solo is the best soccer player whose butthole I've seen on the internet.
Hope Solo is the best.
It's
female,
It's a very small category, but she's the best in it.
She is the best female goalkeeper ever, and her stats don't lie in that regard. But to say she's the best female player ever, to say she's the best American-born player ever, no, I disagree. And I don't even
Also,
know.
kind of a shitty human being on the side.
Yes, I mean you get beat by Sweden, and then you talk shit about how Sweden was cowardice. They just fucking beat you.
I was talking more about like assaulting people, domestic
She
assault.
beat the crap out of her 16-year-old nephew, and then was still allowed to play.
You had a couple instances of domestic, whatever, but I don't want to dig too much into that. But
no, that's fine. That's absolutely.
It deserved to be mentioned. I thought. Yeah. I think she's kind of a crappy. She definitely has a crappy attitude. But maybe that's why Alexi loves her so much. I think if Alexi was like playing and in the camp, he would be just like kind of like he would be a good player, but he would be like a cancer. Like I wouldn't want him in. He'd be someone like a Josie Alt. Josie Altidore has a terrible attitude.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the other thing I didn't understand is that when Taylor cut his promo about the men's national team failing to qualify for the Olympics, Josie was trying to make it a racial issue, and it's like Josie,
white boy with connects. I'm like, get like.
Where I was like, Josie, where was he making this a racial issue? Where did he mention players of race at all? Like, what are you talking about?
And Josie's always been pretty full of himself, to be fair.
Yes, and there was a Twitter troglodyte that hit the nail on the head and was like, dude, Josie, you need to stop, because Taylor's international career was halted by the amount of concussions he had, and he knew when to walk away. Your international career was cut short because you couldn't qualify for a major tournament against Trinidad and fucking Tobago.
I was going to say also his waistline.
That too. Like,
I just think he's a douche. Now he's in a situation he's not even allowed to train with the first team because they weren't starting him. So he basically told the coach that you suck, you're an idiot, and now he's not allowed to train with the first team. but he's still. That's why I don't. He's still on the possible preliminary Gold Cup roster. I really hope Greg doesn't call him up.
I hope
I don't.
not.
I don't want him. I don't even. I don't want him in the camp.
I thought he was training like he was training.
He's training by
I think.
himself.
Yeah, he was training by himself because Toronto didn't even want him around.
That's what I'm saying. He basically told the coach to go F himself. The coach was like, "Well, you're not part of this team anymore. Bye." Yeah,
And they
okay,
brought
and
in.
like I don't like him on the field, but I think someone like a Michael Bradley is still like a positive impact in like I could see an argument being made to bring Michael Bradley to 2022 and he's never going to touch the field. I
Yeah,
could see an argument being made for that because he does have good leadership and all that stuff. Josie Altidore is a Landon Donovan. He's a cancer. If he's not playing,
he's a great value version of Landon Donovan. All the talk, but not the skill.
yeah, dude, you couldn't even cut it for Sunderland. Like, come on.
And the thing is, what has always frustrated me about Josie Altidore is he's 6'5". He's like 200 some odd pounds. He's a house of a human being. A
But he doesn't play
physical.
like it. He doesn't play like
No, he is a physical presence and should be, but he's softer than Charmin.
Yeah, trust me, I've seen him throwing himself to the floor of historic Crew Stadium in person more than a few times. Which, kind of speaking of that, once again, this is June 25th. They just had their last game there, and they're going to be opening up their new stadium on. I'm actually going to be there. I know a lot of people are going to be there for the new stadium opening in Columbus on the 3rd of July. So that's really exciting. Kind of a torch passing moment for MLS. Like we had the first soccer specific stadium, and now it's like MLS is old enough that we're moving out of it into a brand new spake in place. So that's a pretty good sign for the strength of MLS, I'd say.
That is, yeah, that's a really good sign. I would
Really
agree.
exciting stadium too. I mean, some of the renderings and stuff. They got a beer garden, so that's of course exciting. But I mean, just a lot of stuff. The only thing is, it's like it's right there in the arena district with all the other Blue Jackets and Clippers are in the area too. So it's like, where are we gonna be parking here, guy? Yeah, that's the only thing. It'll kind of make it. There won't be a ton of parking spot for tailgating. Is the only thing, but whatever. I'm excited to see the new stadium.
Yeah, I think I'm ready to see what it's going to look like. That's going to be really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a pretty good wrapping up point. Do you have any other like kind of points on any other things that you wanted to finish up on?
The women's national team are competing for an Olympic gold medal here in July, so I think everybody should watch it
And the
because it's
men's
going to be
team's going to
season.
be sitting on the couch
Yeah,
again.
I'm excited for it because 2016 was a fluke. This team is stacked, and I'm excited to see them redeem themselves and bring home the gold medal.
Well, what if we play someone who has an entire team of transgender athletes and they just wreck us?
Should have played better.
Well, I'm probably getting canceled for this, but yeah, I think New Zealand, they're going to have the first ever trans woman power lifter. Let's just say she's a favorite, to say the least.
Lift more
I,
weights.
I have no problem with people identifying how they want to, but
The thing is,
when it
the
comes
thing
to
is,
sports, I think the questions do have to be asked.
I don't control how other people identify themselves as. I can only control.
I don't care how other people identify. Doesn't
That's
mean
that's how I feel. I don't give like just tell me what I'm supposed to address you as, and that way I don't piss you off.
But when we're talking weightlifting competitions, then maybe I don't think it's unreasonable to ask the question. I don't know what the answer to that question is. I have an opinion on what the answer to that question is, but I'm not going to say my opinion's right. But I don't. I think it's reasonable to ask that question.
I mean,
is it fair? I'm not saying it's not fair. I'm not saying it is. But I'm saying it's not. People act like it's unreasonable to even ask the question, and I think it's always reasonable to ask at least a question.
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask. My thought on all of that is like I don't care what you identify as. I don't care what you call yourself. Just tell me what I'm supposed to address you as, so I don't piss you off because I don't want to be doing that.
Yeah. But
But
we're talking like weightlifting competition where
but when it
biology is clearly a factor.
yeah, I mean when it comes to that, like I can't control that, you know.
That's like a
So
scientific question, honestly.
yeah, like I'm a big proponent of I can only control what I can control. So if my opponent is, let's say my opponent is a transgender male or female to male human being, okay, that's my competition. Well, then you know what? I can't control who I compete against. I can't control the schedule in which I'm competing
That's
against someone.
that's a pretty fair and valid, but there is
So where I'm
that's
going with
very
that is that
interesting.
like
No, I see what you're
my
saying.
my goal is if I see that this person is on my schedule to compete against, how do I compete better than you so I can eliminate that and just be like, well, I won, so it doesn't
Yeah,
matter
yeah. No,
who
it
I lost.
reminds me
Like
of because I was talking to I know kind of Malik. He does hurdles for Teal, and he's very good. Um, and
he
I was
was the
yeah, he won.
PHC
Yeah, he won back.
29 he was the 2019 individual champion, I believe, in New York.
Yeah, but because I was talking to him, I was asking how qualifying for like regional to national works, and he says like what place you come in doesn't really matter. It's all about like your time. So you could come in third, and then all three of you qualify, or you could win, and none. It's so I think like kind of what you were saying. It's kind of like that. It's at the end of the day, you're always going to be your own competition, no matter who you quote unquote going against. But I do think it's reasonable to ask, I mean, because that is the reason that we do have, we do distinguish between men and women. Um, so I don't know what the answer is. I think there's going to be some science to look into to answer that question. And I think it's definitely going to be contextual because everyone is kind of born differently. Um,
Right.
but I'm hesitant to say that it should just be completely open as well, and anyone can identify however and compete however. I think people should be allowed to live their lives as fulfilling as they can be, but I think in those specific contexts, it's not unreasonable for there to be some kind of evaluation in that regard. So I get that would be the best way that I can say it without, well, whatever. Cancel me all day long. I don't really care.
I mean, for somebody who's going to be a 30-year-old straight white male, in my opinion, doesn't really mean anything on
Oh
these
yeah,
subjects.
straight. Yeah, you keep telling yourself that.
Like I just whatever you want to identify as, that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't. Like I don't want to piss
Yeah,
people
sure.
off. I don't have control over that. Like
Yeah, but if I want
whatever.
to win a gold in weightlifting and I got Randy Savage over there, you know. Oh well, I mean it's the same reason that you can't take steroids. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, actually, Mel, maybe it's not the. I guess that's the question. Is it the same thing? Is testosterone and and that's why I say it's really a scientific question, and I think
yeah.
it
I'm not
is
qualified to
very
answer scientific
well,
questions.
and I think it's variable based on the person as well. I don't
Yeah,
think it should be like a set standard of all trans people can or I think because everyone's biology is unique, especially and then you also you have instances of people who are born intersex with both genders or there's so many different whatevers, and like I don't want to tell people who they are or whatever, but when it comes to competition there of course has to be some level of standardization. So
rules or regulations
so
or whatever.
and it's like for something so complicated and
Yeah,
the work needs to be done. And I think right now they're not doing the work. They're just, nobody wants. It's a difficult question, and nobody wants to get caught being the wrong answer on it. So they're choosing to do nothing rather than do the hard work which is required to answer such a difficult question. And that's my opinion.
yeah. We've evolved into a society that would rather hide behind the comforting lies than address the hard truth.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on that one. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, gotta wrap that up here. Any last vibes you're putting out to the people? I know we're gonna be cheering on our women's team in the Olympics. Men's team has Gold Cup coming up, which is it's not like super important, but
Is the
so
Gold Cup is the Gold Cup considered a major tournament?
uh not I mean on the international stage, no.
Because
To us,
the
if there wasn't the Nations League, then yes. But because we already did Nations League, like, and
I mean the Nations
we're
League
not
wasn't a
bringing
major
all our
tournament
best.
either.
Yeah, but we're not bringing all our best players to the Gold Cup. Now, Nations League is a new thing that they're doing, which is the
Yeah,
top. So we bought our best players to show out. If that didn't exist, then I would say yes, it would be the major tournament. But because we already
I,
had that, they're letting the Europeans rest. Like Christian and Gio and all those guys aren't going to be playing in the Gold Cup. It's going to be more. It's going to be more what you said, like the bubble dudes, so that Greg can get it more of a look. So in terms of needing to win, it's not as important as Nations League, I would say, but it's as big of a tournament as we're going to get. But they unfortunately most of the teams in CONCACAF are not going to provide a stiff competition outside of the top. Outside of Honduras, obviously Mexico, Honduras, Costa Rica, Jamaica has some good stuff. Canada has some good stuff, but there's usually a lack of competition, so it's almost at times it's not even worth bringing in the best. We had people like Chris Wondolowski scoring 5 goals in the Gold Cup. Yeah, how's that?
I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
How's that translate to World Cups? Not so great.
I mean, the only vibe I would want to leave is that, as exciting as the youth movement is for the men's national team, we still got to understand that there's a mess that needs to be cleaned up. They still have to qualify. I'm a part of the American Outlaws. I subscribe to all that stuff. I'm a member of, I don't know what chapter I'm a part of, and they tweeted out, was like, believe in this team and believe in these kids, and it's not over yet, and blah blah blah. I'm like, I'll
We
believe
got
in
the
these
talk.
kids.
It's walking time. We've talked the talk. It's walking time, baby.
Exactly. Like, I'll believe in these kids when
When I
they
see it.
qualify. And the thing is, they're not even kids anymore. They're not the Wunder kids anymore. Christian Pulisic is 22. Weston McKinney's 22. Yes, we do have some 18-year-olds, but the Wunder kids are in their 20s. They're not kids anymore. And when they signed their national team contracts, they became adults. They've got
I think
we've
that
got to
Nations League win was a good step in the right direction. I mean,
it was we are on an upward trajectory, but
they have to
you
keep. They can't rest on what they've been told. They have to
exactly.
do it.
They need to qualify for 2022 World Cup. They have to qualify for the next Olympics. And it's not just about qualifying anymore. You've got to make a statement. You've got to
It's
get
not
out.
about potential anymore. We've established that there's tons of potential.
Yeah,
Well, lots
because
of nations have had potential and not done anything with it.
because let me go back to an earlier point. We've got 15 kids overseas playing in big time leagues, big time teams. Great, fan fucking tastic. Translate that to the international game, because guess what? We talk about
Doesn't
Christian
mean
Pulisic
anything.
exactly. We talk about Christian Pulisic being here, Serginho Dest being over there, Weston McKinney being here. Lindsey Horan played for 4 years with PSG women's squad. There was about 5 women who played in the FAWSL just last year, one of them being Rose Lavelle, Abby Dahlkemper, and Sam Ewis. Those 3 played for Man City. Tobin Heath and Kristen Press went over as a package deal to play for Man United. The whole infatuation of playing overseas doesn't exist anymore, because you've got to translate that to the international game. You've got to qualify and you've got to make a statement. And some people are going to listen to this and be like, oh, well, how does Wilcox get off saying this? Well, 1, I played soccer for 18 years. 2, I work in soccer. I cover soccer. I know what it takes to be a quality team. Also, I've never been a pilot. I'll never be a pilot. I'll never fly an airplane. I know that when you fly the plane during its route, you're not supposed to crash it into the mountainside. So let's not crash the plane into the mountainside anymore.
Yeah.
Let's get into these major tournaments. Let's, I'm not
We all
asking
know
to win.
we know what we can do. Now it's just time to do
We
it.
have to. I'm not asking to win a World Cup. I'm not asking to win a gold medal. I would love to see that. Yes. However, what I think is a feasible, realistic expectation: get out of the group stages, get into the knockout rounds, get into the Elite
That's
Eight and the final.
minimum. I think that's minimum expectation is get out of the group stage for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously
qualify. My realistic.
There's no excuses on that. As much as I love Greg Berhalter, if they don't qualify, he has to be sacked. And
if
that is an ultimate failure beyond it'll be more of a failure than the 18 miss by far.
If they don't qualify for 2022, this is my I'll throw an outlandish wild take out there. If they don't qualify for 2022, nobody on that team, on that active roster, on the World Cup qualifying roster, not a single motherfucker should be allowed to come back. Get rid of all of them and start completely over, because it'll have been the second.
We don't qualify in 2022. Maybe some of our women's players should start identifying as men. We might have a chance.
Shit, Tobin Heath is one of the best midfielders / forwards on this planet, regardless of gender. I know I've told you that before. Rose Lavelle is one of the baddest midfielders on this planet. Kristen Press is scoring goals that fucking I haven't seen Christian Pulisic score. 25 yards out is still 25 yards out, regardless of male or female.
Well, you could argue about the goalkeeper, but we're not going to do that. All
Hey, you
right.
know what? Kristen Press don't play goalkeeper for Thailand. She plays striker for the United States women's national team.
Yeah,
I know.
I don't want
I
to get
know.
into it, but I feel like women's goalkeeping is not specifically as strong relatively to the rest of positioning. And I'm no biologist, and I think it has something to do with like center of balance and that kind of stuff. But like once again, I'm not a physiologist, but anyway, yeah, go ahead, cancel me, whatever. Wilcox, I really appreciate you taking the time. I mean, great combo. I knew it would be. Um,
No,
yeah,
I'm
maybe
glad that you had me on there.
outside of sports, what kind of vibes you want to put out to the people?
I mean, you never know, you never know what battle somebody is fighting. You know, I don't understand why we're still not accepting gay people. Why are we still accepting? Why are we still so against gay people? Why are we still so against transgender people? Why are we still so against being different? Just, you know, the suicide rates have never been higher. The suicide attempts have never been higher. Just be an accepting person. Just be a nice person. You never know what battle that person is fighting. You know,
Yeah, yeah, that's very
we can't trust our government to be cool with gay people. So you yourself should be cool with gay people. Like, just accept people for who they are, because you can't control what that other person, wants to be. So
I think
the vibe and the thought I would send is just, you know,
acceptance.
be an accepting and welcoming and nice person, because it costs $0 and 0 cents to do that.
Yeah, I think that's very poignant, well said, and I really appreciate you kind of wrapping that up as some of the stuff we talked about, not so serious, but that was very poignant, and I think a lot of our listeners will appreciate that. Once again, wrapping up here, this was Mr. Jared Wilcox on a little bit of soccer talk on episode of DP2 the Brain. Don't forget to like and subscribe or follow on whatever platform you're watching or listening to this on. And we will see you guys again soon. Thank you guys so much.